Nagarjun Dwarkanath also getting in more details. Nagarjun, essentially this would offer us clues as to what could have possibly gone wrong, and hence this recovery is extremely important, isn't it?
Sneh, it's absolutely true. It's a big headway in the investigation as to what exactly went on in this Air India crash. And we have been looking since morning, is what I was told, for the black box. Yesterday the priority was to recover all the dead bodies and the mortal remains and ensure that the surrounding area is completely sanitized, and now it's the time for investigation. Today, the Air India officials and also the Aircraft Accident Investigation Board officials had reached the spot, and finally they have recovered the black box. These are two separate units in the tail of the aircraft. Sneha, what we call colloquially is black box, usually is about flight data recorder and cockpit voice recorder. What did the pilot tell the co-pilot? Was there miscommunication? Was the instructions not heard properly? What was the communication to the ATC? And also the flight data recorder gives in critical analysis as to was the engine did the engine go away in terms of the fuel pressure as such? Why did the aircraft lose its engine power? Was there fuel contamination? All of it would be the reason why the flight data recorder might get crucial information, and that's the reason it's a big headway in the investigation. At this point of time, Air India has finally taken the black box, and now the data also would be shared with other foreign agencies like NTSB as well, who would be coming here. Boeing also would be taking up the data and analyzing as to further what should be done and what course of action needs to be taken. And the main reason what this would show is, was it a technical glitch? If that's the technical glitch, then most likely the Air India and also Boeing might even ground all the 787 till further investigation of full report is carried out. So this becomes crucial piece of data for all the investigative agencies at this point of time.
Well, absolutely. And as per protocol, the device is going to be sent to forensic labs, and of course, it's going to be thoroughly investigated. A very significant development. Nagarjun Dwarkanath, be with us. I'll just come back to you in a moment from now. I'm going to go straight across to Preeti as well. Preeti has been tracking those details. She continues to be with us from the crash site. Of course, Nagarjun Dwarkanath with us as well. Vijay also from the civil hospital, and Vidya from the DNA sampling spot is what we've been given to understand. Preeti, coming to you, you've been speaking to just so many people, those who've been left behind. It's a very difficult situation to be in, not just as a reporter as well, where you talk to people who are coming to, given their DNA samples, because they know that the dead body as is never going to be handed over to them. And in that sense, there will be very little dignity, isn't it?
Sneha, I've been at the civil hospital where the DNA sampling is taking place, where the post-mortem is there, where the mortuary is there. They're moving some of the bodies from the post-mortem, from the mortuary to cold storages because it's overflowing, and the DNA testing is going to take at least 3 days. But I want to give our viewers an understanding. I've managed to come to a position where we can actually see now the tail end of the aircraft AI-171, the Dreamliner. This, if I can ask my camera person Sanjay to actually zoom in, you can see two cranes that have been brought in. You can see the investigative agency that is also here, multiple agencies, the DGCA, the Civil Aviation Ministry, then you also have the AAIB, the Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau. There are a team of 35 people from there. You can see there is seemingly now an attempt to move the tail of the Dreamliner. This is where, because the tail end assembly is the area, Sneha, where at least the agencies hope to recover a black box. If you look at it, there are two black boxes in an aircraft, one in the tail end assembly. So there is a possibility, because at least the tail end assembly is intact. And since the course of the last 2 hours, we've seen at least a lot of movement around there, because the entire site is now cordoned off. One must understand, Sneha, that as The Dreamliner had crashed. The debris is scattered between 900 meters as well. Yesterday, of my own account, I had seen, from the tail end, 900 meters away, there was a door that was also found. So one can very well understand, the task, the mammoth task that the investigative agencies have in their hand. But what I can really tell you, and you can see, Sanjay is going to continue to close in on the visuals that are coming in. You can see investigative officers, at the site. This is the area of maximum focus for all agencies right now, because this at least is a controlled area where they know that they can possibly pull out some crucial information through the black box of the aircraft. Like I said, there are two black boxes. One, in all possibility, should be found in the tail end of it. This, of course, is the vantage point. All right, the latest that we're getting in right now is that black box has, in fact, word coming in, been found. I'm going to go back to you, Sneha. We're going to try and get in more information on this, and back to you shortly.
Right, okay. Now, of course, there were two black boxes is what Preeti is talking about at this point in time. But the confirmation that we have is that one black box has been recovered from the roof. And that's what we were talking about with Nagarjun Dwarkanath. I'm going to go back again to Naga for more on that. Take us through the details, Nagarjun. What now? It goes to the forensics department. Okay, I'll in fact continue to be with Preeti, who is getting in more details on the recovery, Preeti, of the black box. And what else do you see around you, if you could give us an overview right now?
Sneha, what we do know now, that one of the black boxes that have been recovered has actually been recovered from right here behind me, and this has been the tail end of the aircraft. This was the area where they were looking to recover the black box from, and that's where they've been managed to recover it. Now you can see two cranes that have been moved in, and Sanjay will show you on either sides of the tail end of the wreckage of the aircraft, and there is an attempt to move this wreckage now, and that is, of course, after the recovery of the first black box. A lot of investigative action there, a lot of, personnel from both the DGCA, the AAIB, the civil ministry officials, all of them had been focused right now at the tail end of the aircraft. So this is, of course, the tactical part of it all. And as you pointed out earlier, Sneha, the human aspect of it unfolding at the civil hospital, which is really not far from here, because the BG Medical Hostel, and that is the mess area of the BG Medical Hostel, is very, very close to the civil hospital. That is where, of course, the human tragedy and the expanse of that is actually unfolding. And that's the sad part, because while DNA samples are being submitted, what we've been clearly given to understand is going to take at least 3 days. At least 3 days for DNA samples to be matched with the ones of their loved ones who are giving in these samples. Back to the studio.
Preeti, I'll just come back to you in a moment from now. A quick word once again from Nagarjun Dwarkanath for more on the kind of clues, Naga, that the black box essentially holds. And what is the process from here on? When it goes to the forensics, how soon do we get to know what could have possibly happened there that, that eventually led to this fatal crash?
The data goes to the forensic lab, Sneha, and post that the aircraft accident investigation board takes over the data, sits with all the experts, sits with the Air India captains also, and then analyze the data. And also they try to simulate if the data that is showing is also not manipulated. They take it to the simulator once again, get into demonstration and simulation, putting in the same data that at 625 feet, if there was no power, would the aircraft be crashing at the hostel? All the kilometers, the data, the high speed would be recreated, and finally a report would be submitted to the government, also not just to the government but Boeing as well. If there was any technical glitches and it was a gearing glitch from Boeing as well, the report would be given to Boeing, asking the Boeing company to ensure that all the 787 would be grounded across the world for till further investigation comes out or some clarity comes out. But at this point of time, it seems like one of the accidents that has happened, and Boeing 787 has been flown across the globe for many, many years now, and it seems to be one of the safest aircrafts. Experts have been saying that maybe flap configuration was wrong, maybe undercarriage was stuck, or there was just not enough lift, and 1 in a billion chances where both engines have failed. If both engines have failed, what was the reason? All this data would be crucially analyzed by experts, including Boeing, Air India, and our government representatives from the Aircraft Accident Investigation Board.
That's right. Be with us, Nagarjun Dwarkanath, getting in more details as far as the black box is concerned to tell our viewers a little more about what this black box essentially does. Remember, it records vital flight data, which is crucial for probe. It can withstand explosions, fire and high-speed crashes. Includes cockpit, voice recorder and flight data recorder as well. It records radio transmissions and cockpit sounds as well. Includes conversation between the pilots, the engine noises, those records, altitude, airspeed and flight heading, flight data. Reveals the pilot's last actions, and hence the recovery of the black box becomes just so important. And always, in all air crash investigations, recovery of the black box is actually the beginning of the investigation as to what could have horribly gone wrong with the airplane. And that's what is going to be done in the case of AI-171, the Dreamliner that crashed and killed 241 people on board, more people who were not on board. I'm going to go also across to Divyesh for more details on that story. Divyesh is at the civil hospital, I understand. Vijay also continues to be with us. Divyesh, in fact, give us an idea about how soon are those who are carrying out the rescue operations, essentially trying to retrieve whatever remains really of the bodies of the passengers on that ill-fated flight. When is that process going to get over? Also, the DNA sampling of just so many passengers, that's a process that's going to take some time, isn't it?
Well, regarding the area where the aircraft crashed, that was at the Vijay Medical College hostel. It was till late last evening. There were rescue efforts going on. They were searching for bodies. They were searching for remains, and also they managed to pull out late in the night, like post midnight. There was a body that was pulled out of the rubble at the medical college hostel. Now, as per sources from the Gujarat Police Department and the local administration, there are no more missing people or no more bodies which could be there in the rubble. There's the aircraft which remains over there, the aircraft's tail which remains over there, that needs to be removed, but that will be done only under supervision of DGCA authorities, Airport Authority of India authorities, and especially the Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau. So all these officials are already present at the spot, and that is why the recovery of black boxes happened. And as Nagarjun pointed out earlier, that this is a crucial piece of evidence and which will give or bring to light the details of what went wrong in the aircraft, what went wrong in those 30 seconds that led to the crash. So this is a crucial piece of evidence. Earlier there was a DVR that was found, then there was a locator and transmitter that was found, and now the black box has been recovered. So black box is very crucial. It's a very crucial piece of evidence in terms of the air crash investigation, and that will bring to light how this crash happened, what went wrong. Obviously, there are ATC details, but they need to also get the flight recorder, the cockpit recorder, to find out what was the kind of communication, what that happened in those 30 seconds between the two pilots. They gave a mayday call to ATC. Before the ATC could respond, the crash happened. So what was the mayday call? Did they point out, did the pilot, the co-pilot communicate with the co-pilot that there was something wrong? There was no propulsion. How did the how did the plane come down crashing? So that will only be found out with the cockpit recorder and also with the help of the black box, which has now been recovered.
That's right. Be with us, Divyesh. I'm going to go, in fact, back to Preeti once again, who is at the crash site. Preeti, what's the latest that you can share with us? As far as what you see around you, you've, of course, been tracking that story from the civil hospital as well. But as of now, what is going on? Tell us more.
You know, Sneha, we've moved from the civil hospital right now. We're one of the buildings right behind, one of the very few channels that have been able to find this particular position. And I'll ask my camera person, Sanjay, to actually show you, because what we've been discussing right now in the studio is actually playing right behind me. We saw a lot of action just a short while ago when I showed you lots of officials milling right on top where the tail end of the Dreamliner is lodged into the mess area of the BJ Hospital hostel, and this was the area. Right now you can see a complete lull in activity because 10 to 15 minutes ago this was the area from which was pulled out the black box. Now that is going to be the crucial point of information on what exactly went down at about 1:38 p.m. last night. What you can see right behind me is also now an attempt to try and dislodge, the wreckage of the tail end of the aircraft. They were trying to do so to extract the black box, but because of, the impact of the Dreamliner on this particular building, the entire structure, because I was there inside late last night, is rather unstable. And that's also one of the main reasons that even for the investigating officials who are there after the extraction of the black box, they have moved down away from the building, and because to extract it they had to move the wreckage and therefore destabilizing the building a little bit as well. So yes, the black box has been found. It's been found from the tail end assembly of the Dreamliner, which you can see lodged right behind me in the mess area of the BJ hospital hostel. And now is, I would reckon, and I'm sure Sneha Naga's also with us, he'll be able to pitch in terms of what this data could actually entail in terms of information, because this would be crucial. It's been one of the rarest of rare tragedies that both the engines of the Dreamliner have faced an aerodynamic stall, which is no thrust, no power, leave alone one, but both engines together. And that is resulted in this mammoth, catastrophic tragedy in Ahmedabad, the worst possibly that India has ever seen. I'm sure Naga can also pitch in. Over to you, Sneha.
That's right. In fact, this is a question that we are exploring right now, on whether there was a double engine failure that could have caused this crash. That's something that we want to talk about. Pilot actually issued a mayday call at 1:39 p.m. yesterday. A mayday call is typically triggered when both engines fail. Now, in case of single engine failure, pilots can usually divert to the nearest airport. Safe landing actually didn't happen, raising suspicion of complete engine power loss. That's also something that needs to be looked at very closely, and something that the investigations will eventually reveal. Also, to tell our viewers, the double engine failure is actually highly unusual and catastrophic. And that's the reason why questions were being raised on how could it happen. Boeing 787, with a good safety record, otherwise has in fact led to this crash, or what really has led to this crash. Nagarjun continues to be with us. Nagarjun, the whistleblower from Boeing had essentially flagged off concerns in the past as well involving 787. How did two engines fail if that was the reason for this crash? These are questions that Boeing has to answer eventually, and that's the reason why the investigations will throw light on whether there are actual faults with 787 as flagged off by the whistleblower in the past, isn't it?
Well, that's true. In 2014, a lot of reports have come through
Yes.
whistleblower as to safety issues of the same Dreamliner 787. And there was tough competition with his Airbus competitors 330 and 350 back then. But initially, it was the reports of battery glitch and engine issues. But the same engine, the General Electric engines, are being used on 777. Both 787 and 777s have had terrific track record over the last 10 years, apart from the battery glitches initially, and Boeing rectified it. And since then, it has got good safety record across India. Many world-class airlines use, including Air India, use 787. Like I was saying, double engine failure is highly unlikely, 1 in a billion or 1 in a trillion situation. The aircrafts are such sophisticated, both Boeing and Airbus. Sneha, even if the pilot wants to crash it wantedly or even with purpose, the aircraft sends back a message that it won't. Even if the pilot pushes the stick down, putting the nose towards the ground, the aircraft system automatically takes over and ensures that the plane doesn't go to the ground. That's the sophistication system that we are talking about. And if it has really happened that both engines have failed, or is it because of bird hit, or it was because of manual miscommunication? Instead of putting the wheels up, did the co-pilot push the flaps back on? That's the big angle that the investigative agency will be looking at, because during takeoff we always take flaps either to 25, 30, or 10 or 5 degrees. What are flaps? Flaps are something like extra panels on the wing which creates or gives you more air wing width, so that the lift is increased when during the takeoff. And usually
Right.
flaps are rolled back at 10,000, 12,000 after you have reached certain altitude, because it's not safe reducing the wingspan initial takeoff. So if the captain told the co-pilot to pull the wheels back up, did the co-pilot pull the flaps back up? All these angles will have to be looked into, but seemed like it's unlikely, because both these pilots had tremendous experience flying the same plane. Remember, they're not flying different plane. On the same plane, they've had experience. So unlikely that a small error like this would have happened, but only Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau can come up with the exact reasons and why, if they've lost power and why both engines failed. That's the big question mark as of today.
Well, absolutely. Nagarjun, I'm going to come back to you in a moment from now as far as the investigations are concerned. But to tell our viewers a little about this tragedy, a little more about the devastating air tragedy in Ahmedabad, which has claimed the lives of over 250 people. The pressing question is, what happens next? And most importantly, the answers to what caused this deadly crash. Local authorities are piecing together the final moments of Air India Flight 171 through key evidence, including the black box that is going to help reconstruct the flight path and uncover what went wrong during the takeoff. Analysis of the wreckage will also be done too, or rather analysis is going to be done of the wreckage to determine the sequence of events and identify any mechanical failures. Aviation consultant John M. Cox says investigators will look into whether the aircraft was properly configured for takeoff, specifically if the flaps that Naga mentioned just now and slats deployed correctly. A thorough review of the aircraft's maintenance logs will be conducted to check for any overlooked repairs or known technical problems.
From the images, we can get an idea of some of the things that the investigators are going to look at. One of which is, was the airplane properly configured for flight? Were the slats and flaps in the proper location? That is something that's on the flight data recorder, so we'll know immediately. Now, the airplane does have a warning system that will advise the pilots with a horn as well as a message on a computer screen if the airplane's not properly configured for takeoff. At this point, it's very, very, very early. We don't know a whole lot, but the 787 has very extensive flight data monitoring. The parameters on the flight data recorder are in the thousands. So once we get that recorder, they'll be able to know pretty quickly what happened.
Vidya also continues to be with us as far as the DNA sampling is concerned. Vidya, family members continue to trickle in to give out their DNA samples. Just tell us, this is DNA sampling for 241 passengers. What's the process really, and how long will before we get to know, or before the family members get an opportunity to identify whatever remains really of their loved ones?
Well, Sneha, this is one case where almost everything will really take time. Be it the investigation, the discovery of the black box just now, the decoding, and we all know that Boeing has a lot at stake in this, and so certainly they would want to be part of the investigation. So the investigation and getting to know exactly as to what really led to this will take time. Similarly, right here at the DNA sampling center where I'm located, if I can just show you These are just families who are just waiting here since yesterday. In fact, some of them I've been speaking to them. They reached here around 3 o'clock and they've been just waiting here just to get the report, just to get as soon as the matching report. And they've said very clearly that, when I was speaking to one family, and they said that, if only there was some way to shorten this entire process to just make sure that the handing over of the body would be done at the earliest. So because there's one family of Nadia who was here, and they kept saying that they've been trying to go every few hours they enter, and of course there's a wait of 72 hours. The administration also cannot really do much, but the families are getting restless. They are going every hour, getting inside the sampling center, wanting to know exactly how long it will more, and all that they're being told is you'll get a call. So that's something that the administration and the people who are waiting here, are trying to make sure that the people do not really feel restless. They're trying to ensure that there are seating arrangements, everyone's being provided with food and water. But of course, the people who really want the bodies to be handed over, then they can take it back to Nadia. Say, for example, this particular family, they want the process to really end. They have already lost their near and dear ones, and just hope that it won't stretch this long for everyone to wait. But well, the DNA sampling has been done for the bodies last night itself. Most of the relatives of those people, their sampling has also been done, but except for a few who are still awaited. All this process has, as the administration has been saying, 72 hours. That is 3 days is what it is going to take. That's certainly much before when the investigation reports will come out. But certainly it's a very long wait for the family members here at the civil hospital in Ahmedabad.
All right, Vidya, getting in those details, 241 passengers who lost their lives. There was one person who cheated there. Ramesh was seated in 11A, a window seat located in the first row of economy class near an emergency exit. His miraculous escape stunned the world and sparked conversations around social media, with many calling his survival an act of divine intervention. The term Miracle Seat 11A is now trending globally. Here's more on the lone survivor. God's own child, a miracle man. The lone survivor of the horrific Air India plane crash that killed every single of the 241 on board, barring 45-year-old British national Vishwas Kumar Ramesh. It's a miracle amid an unthinkable tragedy, as charred bodies were painstakingly retrieved from the debris of the crash site, no less than a graveyard. A sight of a man walking away from the plane crash site with bruises on his face stunned the nation. While in hospital, Vishwas Kumar Ramesh narrated how he managed the miraculous escape, as his seat fell off the plane and he took off his seat belt and walked away from the accident spot.
थोड़ा टाइम लेके तो मेरे को लगा था कि मैं भी मरने वाला हूँ, लेकिन जब मेरी आँख खुल के मैं देखा ना तो मुझे लगा मैं जिंदा हूँ। तो मैंने ट्राई किया, जब मेरी सीट थे वो मेरी बेल्ट निकाला, मैंने वो ट्राई किया जहाँ से निकल सकता वहाँ से, तो मैं निकल गया वहाँ से। मेरे नजरों के सामने एयर हॉस्टल और दूसरे आंटी अंकल सभी उसमें मेस हो गए थे सभी। मैं जो साइड पे था ना, वो साइड हॉस्टल पे नहीं लैंड हुई थी, हॉस्टल के जो ग्राउंड फ्लोर है ना जैसे नीचे, वहाँ लैंड हुई थी। तो मुझे दूसरे के बारे में मेरे को पता नहीं, लेकिन मैं जहाँ लैंड हुआ था ना वो नीचे की साइड थी। तो जब वहाँ थोड़ा पेस भी था प्लेन के जब बाहर, तो जब जैसे मेरा डोर टूटा ना सब, तो मैंने देखा ना जब सामने कि थोड़ा इधर पेस है, तो मैं ट्राई कर सकता हूँ निकलने के लिए। तो मैंने ट्राई किया निकलने के लिए, तो फिर मैं निकल गया उधर, क्योंकि अपोजिट साइड पे था ना वो बिल्डिंग का वो था ना दीवार, तो उधर से कोई शायद नहीं निकल सका होगा।
Prime Minister Narendra Modi also met with him, wishing him a speedy recovery. Ramesh's own brother, Ajay Kumar, seated next to him, was among the 241 on board the ill-fated Dreamliner who perished. Back home in Leicester, in the UK, India today met with the family of Vishwas Ramesh.
We've received support from obviously our family members, relatives, friends. They've all come in to give us support, but we don't have any support from the UK's government or the India's government. We've received no updates whatsoever from them.
What is it that you're doing now, and what are the plans?
Currently, right now, we're just waiting on updates on my other brother. That's what we're worried about right now.
The family is still waiting to hear formally from Air India about Vishwas's brother, who has not survived the crash. Ajay Kumar was Vishwas Kumar's co-passenger in the same flight.
Yeah, they were sitting next to each other, but we don't know what happened to his brother. We not heard anything. Yes, we heard that, but we still can't say anything unless we hear it from the proper person. So.
Call it the miracle of Seat 11A, as reported widely by the international press, or divine intervention. Vishwas Kumar Ramesh's survival is both a mystery and a miracle. A lone light in a sky clouded with sorrow. Bureau Report, India Today. Preeti, Vishwas Kumar Ramesh talks about how he actually fell off, and that's how he managed to, take his seatbelt off and escape. Actually, he got up and walked away from the crash site. I mean, this is nothing short of a miracle. It happens, but it's extremely infrequent. It's not happened so often in the past, but there are big questions that remain on how did he survive after that heat of the fuselage, after the impact of the crash, isn't it? How is he doing at this point in time, Preeti?
Are you asking me, Sneha?
Yes, Preeti.
Sneha, was that for me? All right. Okay, Sneha, yes. For what we do know, because the Prime Minister did visit him, and after that we did, of course, see that interview given to another organization by Vishwas Kumar. And the fact is, Sneha, he is, like I said, a miracle in all of this. If 242 passengers were there, 241 have been designated killed and one walked out, so one can very well imagine that it is that Hail Mary moment when it came down to this crash. And what is also, fascinating, one would say, is the sheer fact that he walked out, A, walked out, B, walked out with very little burns. He just has a burn on one side of his thigh, is what we are being told. Otherwise, hematoma injury. So he, actually walked out possibly before the entire aircraft was engulfed as a ball of fire. But, what he also did say, and it's important to note during that interview, and I'll ask my camera person, Sanjay, to actually zoom in, because this is where the tail end is there. And he said, I wasn't part, I did not, where at least my seat was there, it wasn't near the tail end or the mess. And understandably, because he was in 11A. So that's a seat right up front of the aircraft near the cockpit. To give our viewers perspective, so this is the tail end right up ahead. You can see those three charred buildings. That was the hostel area. The tail end was lodged in the mess area. That is where the plane had crash landed, had crashed into the mess area. And those three buildings up ahead were the hostel. And that is the area, of course, where the engine, and one of the engines is actually found intact, is what we've been given to understand. And that, in effect, on its own, is going to be a case study of a separate investigation, because both of the engines had failed in this Dreamliner. So that is also the area where, what you say, Vishwas Kumar, Sneha, was actually, his seat, or at least where his part of the aircraft crashed that in that area, and he was able to move out and walk out. Once again, I want to just take our viewers through on the importance of the developments that have happened over the last 30 minutes, Neha, and that is finding, the black box. And if Naga is still with us, I'd like to, if you allow me, ask him one question, because if you actually, this was something that the investigative agencies, and there are multiple agencies that are working together, looking to figure out if the black box was found. And once it's been found, it's going to be crucial in terms of information on three fronts, Neha.
As far as the recovery of the black box is concerned, but a moment to discuss the man, the lone survivor, who walked away from the crash site. And you can take a look at those pictures, essentially, that had gone completely viral, of Vishwas Kumar Ramesh, the 45-year-old British national, who actually realized that he is alive. Imagine what a moment that would have been. Of course, trauma as well. Also, given the fact that Vishwas Kumar Ramesh, his own brother, was seated next to him, and he perished in that fatal attack. I'm going to go back to Preeti, also discussing the recovery of the black box and the very fact that this is obviously going to offer important clues into how the Dreamliner crashed. Preeti.
That's what I was talking about, Sneha, because the development in the last 30 minutes, away from the human side is all too overbearing, and I would think, that would be etched in civil aviation history in India forever. But talking about the tactical side of it, the discovery of the black box will now be crucial, where the Dreamliner 787 is concerned, on multiple factors. On three main factors, the black box will help. Number one, all the conversations that were recorded in the cockpit now will, one can identify what really happened. Number two, on all mechanical sounds that take place inside a cockpit. So whatever distress signals that were sent out, the machine noise, the beeps, all of that is now going to be lodged into the memory of the black box. And that is going to be crucial, Sneha, because multiple agencies are going to investigate on what really went down. And it will have a bearing on not just this particular crash of the 787 Dreamliner, but will possibly have a bearing on other Boeing aircrafts as well, aircrafts as well. Number three, Sneha, mechanical parameters, over 1,000 parameters would be lodged in to that black box. And the present day, Gen X black box are a plug in and plug out, kind of devices where they're plugged into a particular device and all the information is immediately gotten out. So it could very well be plugged into a computer, and through that basis of that computer, all the kind of three parameters that we actually spoke of will be disseminated. So these three factors are crucial right now to understand where we stand in terms of investigation. Was it a pilot error? Was it, a mechanical fault in this particular aircraft? Was it a problem with settings? Was it what many people are still speculating, just a bird hit? And there is a bird problem where the Ahmedabad airport is concerned. And, we've seen this over the course of, the last 24 hours. And most air aviation, experts would say that there is a bird problem where the Ahmedabad airport is concerned. But having said that, all of those parameters would be now recorded. So the bearing of the findings of what comes out of the black box is going to be imperative to know what really went wrong, and does that limit it to this particular ill-fated Dreamliner 787 AI-171 flight, or will it have far-reaching implications? Mind you, we must bear right now in our minds that this is an investigation that has gone beyond just Indian investigative agencies. There are members of the Boeing and lots of other countries who have the Dreamliner, are interested, are inquisitive, are impacted with what has really gone down in the last 24 hours right here in Ahmedabad. So Naga, I want to pull you in on this because that's most imperative right now, because the new age black box devices are plug in, and you would be able to get in all the kind of information immediately, and this could in fact have far-reaching consequences and implications, something that could be limited very well to what we see behind me, which is this particular aircraft. Was it just a malfunction which was limited to this ill-fated flight, or will it actually have implications on other Boeing aircrafts as well, other Dreamliners as well?
Well, irrespective of what the implications or the data comes out, Preeti, most likely it will have implications on other Boeing 787 unless it was a pilot error, unless pilot manually pushed a lever ensured the engines were cut off or the flaps were retracted. If these are the points that comes out of the investigation, then there'll be no implications. But if it was a technical glitch, yes, definitely there would be implications of Boeing 787 across the world. And already a DGCA and Minister of Civil Aviation Authority has just put out notification of checks to be done starting from 15 June on all 787 that is flying in India. There have to be checks of power control because all these control systems that pilots uses are fly-by-wire. It's not manual. Hydraulics and electronic systems, motors are used. If to turn right, to turn left, to turn to pull up and pull down, all these are done electronically or through hydraulics. And checks have to be done starting from 15th is what the notification says. And not just that, all electronics have to be checked, all hydraulic systems have to be checked. And every 2 weeks, there has to be a subsequent thorough check is what the DGCA notification says. Seems like already the DGCA and the Ministry of Civil Aviation have pulled up their socks to say that we are going to ensure double checks are being done on 787 so that no further accidents or incidents happen. Considering there have been issues with the Boeing 787, whistleblowers have put out reports on what the issues were since 2014. Now the DGCA...
Naga, will you just stay with me and maybe you can talk us through that in terms of your own experience where civil aviation is concerned. Now, the aviation body DGCA has issued new norms. I want to just take our viewers through it and Naga, pipe in whenever you think right. Aviation body DGCA's new norms include enhanced safety inspection on Boeing 787-89 fleet of MS Air India, one-time check before departure of flights from India, inspection of fuel parameters, monitoring and association of system checks, inspection of cabin air compressor and associated systems, electronic engine control system test, engine fuel driven actuator operation test and oil system check, serviceability check of hydraulic systems, review of takeoff parameters, flight control inspection, power assurance checks, closure of maintenance action based on the review of repetitive snags. Naga, when I go through that list, one really wonders, wasn't this already happening? And if it wasn't happening, then why in the world was it not happening?
Well, it was happening, but now it has to be thorough and maybe it has to be put it on the logbook or documented thoroughly as well. Nothing wrong in doing double checks. Even the pilots before takeoff, while taxiing, they do the checks. That's the takeoff parameters. And while being at the bay, also do the takeoff parameter checks. And hence, still accidents usually happen no matter how many checks are required. So DGCA has put it on paper now that it has to be compulsory, not just monitoring visually and just talking to the flight engineer downstairs. The pilot usually talks to the flight engineer in terms of fuel pressure, in terms of engine pressure and all of it. But now it has to be documented starting from June 15th just to ensure that there's double check for 787 and further accident or incident doesn't happen. Because we have lost 240 flights and till the flight data recorder or the cockpit voice recorder, we analyze the data. We can't risk the lives of people still flying 787. Air India largely uses 787 in India to fly west, either to US or to Europe. So till the data is analyzed, let's not take any risk is what DGCA is saying.
All right, okay. Naga, once again, let's take a moment to reflect on how important possibly, we are standing at the precipice of finding out what really went down yesterday at 1:38 p.m. when the first Mayday signal went out of AI 171 by Captain Sabarwal as the Dreamliner right behind me trammed through the mess area. And then, of course, this is just the tail end, viewers. It's about 600 meters ahead. The debris actually scattered up to 900 meters. In front of it. If you see the buildings on the left and the right, 3 units of buildings completely charred. That's where the maximum fatalities in terms of burns have taken place. On the other side, of course, where the mess area is concerned, 3 fatalities already confirmed of students, mostly hematoma injuries. But Naga, once again, 3 big factors that would have been recorded where the black box is concerned. Number one, all the the conversations in the cabin. Number one, about 1,000 parameters in terms of what really went down in terms of mechanical parameters. All of that now recorded, even machine noise, beeps, distress signals, all of that will be recorded.
Absolutely, Preeti. The analysis would start from the Delhi to Ahmedabad leg? Was there crew resource? If the crew were in tandem, was there any fight between them in the previous leg? Did they have an argument, or were they listening to each other? All that this would be analyzed, and also the crucial data will come from the cockpit voice recorder. When the captain has called Mayday, 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 usually the captain alerts the ATC that, for example, if he's lost engine pressure or engine thrust, he would say Mayday, 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 Air India 171, I've lost power, I've lost thrust, is what the captain would have told the ATC, and hence the moment you plug in the cockpit voice recorder, we know the real reason for the crash, because the captain would have seen the instruments giving out warnings and he would have communicated directly to the ATC. If not, if there was a manual error, there would be a voice of captain telling the co-pilot, why would you pull up the flaps? Why would the undercarriage not be up? All this conversation between the co-pilot and the pilot would be recorded immediately. And also the person who's sitting at the ATC, the moment he realizes Mayday, Mayday, Mayday has come from Air India 171, he also would transmit the message to the ground apron and fire brigade also. But in this case, unfortunately, the Mayday call came at 600 feet. Even if it was at 2,000 or 3,000, I'm guessing that he would have some time to glide, maybe a minute or so, and maybe try to land on a empty patch. But this time around, it was just 600 feet and the aircraft started gliding towards the ground.
Naga, would you want to reflect on the new Gen X black boxes? Because what at least we've been given to believe by aviation experts, it's practically plug in and you'd be able to get out all the information. So it's literally, plugging in a device to your laptop and you'd have all over 1,000 mechanical parameters of the aircraft at that point of time on what went down, filtering through.
Well, that's absolutely true. Crucial data, if we are talking about double engine failure, what led to the double engine failure? Was there fuel contamination? Was the pressure not enough, the fuel pressure not enough to the engines? And was there already a snag that during the taxiing that the pilots picked up and they ignored it? These are the angles that the data would give out to the investigative agency, and they also can inculcate further in the training of the pilots that these warnings or signals, if they come during the taxiing, should not be ignored. And what was the aircraft set in terms of parameters? What was the takeoff parameters set in the cockpit? Usually you have flaps at 10, 15, 20, 25, depending on the weight of the aircraft. Or was the aircraft fully loaded? Was the center of gravity moving away from where it has to be? All this data will be analyzed. It would take Preeti at least 2 to 3 months to sit with experts, because it has to be a holistic study. This will have implications. Hence, it will be the most crucial analyzed report before it comes to the government or before it's made public.
All right. So, of course, you're right there. It is going to be a holistic study, which will go on for at least a month or two to understand on what really went down. Naga, I want to cut across right now, immediately back to Sneha. Sneha, over to you in the studio.
All right, Preeti getting us those details. Nagarjun Dwarkanath also on why the recovery of the black box is important. Enhanced rules also that has been announced by the authority, by the DGCA, to in fact ensure that there is double check. Double check is something that Nagarjun Dwarkanath mentioned, that the safety inspections have to be enhanced and additional maintenance has to be done. These are things that are being looked at right now, even as the investigations in that horrific crash continues. With that, it's time for a quick commercial break here. We're getting you much more news on this disaster and the other details in just a minute.
Edge 60 Pro, the edge of excellence.
Dangerously cool. Go, stop, go. Playing this game like a tic-tac-toe. Sharp as a razor, the flavor bowl. Flip it out, they wanna fold. Keeping them coming.
Motorola Razr 60, dangerously cool.
Hello, Moto.
Yogi Adityanath faces huge challenges even here in Uttar Pradesh. What's the biggest win as far as India is concerned for a section that's completely silent on the atrocities that Hindus are suffering in Bangladesh? Look at how it's happening in style. Crores of devotees. That is the Divya Bhavya Ram temple where the Pran Pratishtha will take place. A shivling-like structure that has been found in the Gyanvapi premises. India Today special broadcast that comes to you from the holy Kedarnath shrine.
Gaurav Sawant, India First, 8 p.m. on India Today Television.
Weather forecast now. Delhi, maximum 46 and minimum 32 degrees. Mumbai, maximum 30 and minimum 25 degrees. Kolkata, maximum 37 and minimum 27 degrees. Bangalore, maximum 30 and minimum 20 degrees. Chennai, maximum 35 and minimum 26 degrees. Hyderabad, maximum 32 and minimum 24 degrees.
Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices. Amplify your brand with 100 million smart internet viewers. To advertise, mail us at sales@aajtak.com.
Co-powered by Ramaiya University. Lead, innovate and transform the world. JioMart saves both time and money.
Torn plane, 260 lives lost. Scattered belongings, shattered dreams. New bride, a doctor's family, and a former minister. No final goodbyes, only silence and sorrow. Pain persists. Closure feels cruelly far. Amid ash and tears, only questions remain. Tales of grief on India Today.
There is shock and there is disbelief. 265 lives at least snuffed out. And why, nobody knows. There were families who were seeing off their loved ones. A father who proudly showed how his daughter was entering the airport to board a flight for a brighter future. Sadly, within moments, that 1 minute, that fatal 1 minute, when that aircraft took off but did not land, but crashed, killing 241 on board and at least 20 on ground. We will get you these unimaginable tales of sorrow and of horror. I'm Gaurav Sawant. Let's get started with the headlines at 6. Big breakthrough in the plane crash investigations. Black box recovered by agencies. Crucial evidence to help piece the timeline of what led to this disaster. More than 260 people dead in the Ahmedabad plane crash. Prime Minister Narendra Modi visits the crash site in Ahmedabad, assesses the situation on ground, meets the injured victims at the civil hospital. DGCA orders inspection of all Boeing 787 fleet, safety inspections of Air India 787, 8 and 9 series aircraft to be done. Air India to carry out additional maintenance and checks immediately. Lone survivor Vishwas speaks out, says he survived as the seat broke out of the aircraft. Vishwas says he was on the opposite side of the hostel and saw many people die in front of him.
थोड़ा टाइम लेके तो मेरे को लगा था कि मैं भी मरने वाला हूँ, लेकिन जब मेरी आँख खुल के मैं देखा ना तो मुझे लगा मैं जिंदा हूँ। तो मैंने ट्राई किया, जब मेरी सीट थे वो मेरी बेल्ट निकाला, मैंने वो ट्राई किया जहाँ से निकल सकता वहाँ से, तो मैं निकल।
No closure, no bodies. Shattered families queue up for DNA tests to identify what remains of their loved ones. 216 samples collected so far.
वाले को बोलो 1 करोड़ मैं दूंगी, मेरा पापा मुझे वापस करो। हमके हिसाब से ही मेरे पापा गए हैं ना, हमको चेक करना था, क्यों नहीं चेक किया?
After Israel's preemptive strikes, Iran responds, launches 100 drones. Iranian media confirms the Revolutionary Guard Corps commander General Hussein Salami amongst those dead. There is anger, there is anguish, and there is just disbelief. More than 260 lives lost in air and on ground. Amongst them, a new bride. A doctor's family
that were looking for a better future in the United Kingdom, and a former chief minister, a very well-respected former chief minister of Gujarat. The wreckage, it lies scattered, but along with that lie shattered dreams of those on board and those on ground. There were no final goodbyes, just silence and sorrow. Families are left searching for answers, the closure still far, far away. India Today brings you these stories of anguish and pain that continue to haunt those who lost their loved ones.
It was meant to be just another flight, Air India 171 from Ahmedabad to London. 242 souls on board, some chasing dreams, others returning to their loved ones. In mere minutes, that aircraft carrying all of them turned into a fireball, and in it perished hopes, families, and futures. What remains are silent homes, half-packed suitcases, and families broken beyond repair. Tragedy doesn't knock, it storms in. Arjun Patolia had just performed his wife's last rites. His family now mourns 2 deaths in a week.
એમના પત્ની આજે ઘણા સમયથી બીમાર હતા અને તેમનું નિધન થયું હતું. તેમનું ત્યાં બધું પતાવ્યું અને પછી અહીંયા સાંસ્કૃતિક વિધિ માટે આવેલા હતા. તો અસ્થિ પધરાવવાની આજે વિધિ આવતી હોય આપણી સંસ્કૃતિ પ્રમાણે અને બધું કામ પૂર્ણ કરી અને વિધિ પતાવીને આજે પરત ફરી રહ્યા હતા. બપોરની ફ્લાઇટ હતી જે 1:36ની ફ્લાઇટ હતી એમાં AI-171 જેમાં જઈ રહ્યા હતા લંડન ખાતે અને તેમાં જે ફ્લાઇટ ક્રેશની દુર્ઘટના બની છે IGP ગ્રાઉન્ડ ખાતે.
Akash, only 15, worked at a chai stall. The plane crashed onto the street, killing him instantly. His brother is now inconsolable.
मैं, मेरा पापा, मेरी बहन, मेरी मम्मी और मेरा भाई चला गया अभी. मेरा भाई चला गया 5 में से.
दोनों भाई थे.
मेरे भाई चला गया, मेरा भाई चाहिए.
22-year-old Kinal Mistry, just minutes before boarding, had shared a heartfelt message on Instagram. Until next time, miss you all. Today, those very words haunt a grief-stricken father, left behind with nothing but memories.
वो इसको ट्रीटमेंट करने का था, इधर तो ट्रीटमेंट करने आई थी 1 महीना के लिए डेंटिस्ट के वहाँ.
डेंटिस्ट के लिए ट्रीटमेंट के लिए
उसका जब जाने वाली थी ना अगले साल तो उसका कार एक्सीडेंट हो गया था बहुत बड़ा, तो ये पूरा टूट गया था उसका. तो जाइडस में सर्जरी करवाया आनंद में, फिर उधर से अहमदाबाद का ऑर्थोडेंटिस्ट है CTM में, उसके पास उसका ट्रीटमेंट है, पर उसका पूरा बोन ही निकल गया था ऊपर से. तो डॉक्टर ने बोला बोन बनने में 6 से 10 महीना लगेगा. फिर हमने उधर एक्सरे करवाया लंदन में, तो एक्सरे में बोन दिखा है. डॉक्टर बोला कि अब तुम आ सकती हो. फिर इसका 7 से 8 टीथ बोन इम्प्लांट किया 1 महीने में. इतनी स्ट्रॉन्ग थी वो, कोई भी एक साथ नहीं कर सकता इतना बोन. इतनी खुश थी वो ये करने से को.
आप ये कल का ही फोटो है?
कल का ही नहीं थे.
Rupal Patel was heading back to London after a short visit for her treatment. Her husband and 2 children awaiting her homecoming in London. Their wait will now go on for eternity.
लास्ट बार मैं खुद उसको ड्रॉप करने के लिए गया था और उसका मेडिकल कंडीशन था, तो मैंने उसको अपना ये जो पैलेट होता है वो ला के दिया, उसको ट्रॉली ला के दिया और उसमें उसको बैग सब रख के दिया. और आखिर में मैंने उससे हक किया और उसे कहा कि वहाँ पे जाके आराम करना तो रिकवरी जल्दी होगी और कोई चिंता मत करना.
Yasha Kamdar, her baby boy Rudra and mother-in-law Raksha Modha left for London to attend a condolence meet for her father-in-law who passed away battling cancer. The trio met their own tragic end instead.
लड़की का जो नाम है कामदार जी की, यहाँ रहती थी. 2 से 3 साल उनकी शादी को हुए.
ईशा उनका नाम था और वो अपने परिवार के साथ में अहमदाबाद से इनका संपूर्ण परिवार लंदन में स्थायी था। और ईशा के जो ससुरे थे तो उनको कैंसर डिटेक्ट हुआ, उसका ट्रीटमेंट चालू था और ट्रीटमेंट होने के बाद में उनका जो ट्रीटमेंट शुरू थी उसके बाद में उनका निधन हो गया। तो लंदन में इतने साल रहने के बाद में लंदन के वहाँ के लोगों की इच्छा थी कि ईशा का इनका जो परिवार है ये एक बार लंदन में आए, क्योंकि शोक सभा का आयोजन वहाँ लंदन में किया गया था, इसी के लिए लंदन के लिए रवाना हुए।
In an eerie twist, former Chief Minister Vijay Rupani's lucky number 1206, the date became a symbol of mourning across Gujarat and the nation. His first scooter and car bore that very number, and then it is now etched into public memory for the darkest reason. From Himmatnagar to Balotra, Udaipur to Kurukshetra, this wasn't just a crash, it was a collective heartbreak for the nation, for the families of the 241 flyers and many more on the ground who never came home. Closure will remain a distant hope. We remember them and we mourn them. Bureau Report, India Today.
As investigations begin into this disaster, this crash, the toll remains heartbreakingly high. 241 lives lost in that air crash and at least 20 feared dead, several injured on ground. Many pursuing hope, love, and a bright future. Now only silence lingers. Families are shattered. They have memories, but memories that are suspended in time, and a nation that grieves perhaps amongst the worst aviation tragedies. Listen in to some of the heartbreaking stories that are coming in from those who said, we came to see them off. When they boarded the flight, we were all happy that they would have a bright future. Little did they know, within 1 minute, all would be lost.
$241 dead on the ill-fated Air India flight AI-171. Every seat, an individual full of dreams, of hope and future plans.
Don't lose your patience with your partner.
Now left behind are families in shock and grief. This smiling selfie of Joshi family on board the aircraft was symbolic of a fresh start, chasing a dream until it turned into a heartbreaking final memory. Dr. couple Koni Vyas and Prateek Joshi and their 3 young children. Dr. Prateek, settled in London, was finally taking his family of 5 to the United Kingdom. Looking to relocate till a day ago, the whole family perished in the Air India crash. Rajasthan resident Khushbu Rajpurohit got married in January 2025 and was set to join her husband in London for the first time to begin a happy married life. This was the last recorded video of her entering into the airport, and her father posted this image as the WhatsApp status. Ashirwad Khushbu Beta, going to London. The daughter never reached the intended destination. 2 siblings, 24-year-old Shubh Modi and 22-year-old Shagun Modi from the known family of a marble businessman in Udaipur, were passenger number 98 and 99 on the official list of the ill-fated flight. Payal Khatik was on her first ever flight and the destination was London. For this family from Sabarkantha, Gujarat, the days of struggle had transformed into hope, watching their daughter on an official journey to the foreign land. But the horrific crash snatched their joy forever. A native of Kerala, Ranjita was employed as a nurse in the UK. Preparing to move into a newly constructed home, now Ranjita is survived by her mother and 2 young children. Among the dead were also 53 British nationals. 2 young tourists, spiritual wellness coach Jamie Meek and Fiongal Greenlaw Meek, recorded this Goodbye India video, expressing happiness to return home to the UK.
What's your biggest takeaway, Jamie? We've done this already. On a different thing? Oh, right. What's my biggest takeaway?
Ironically, also in the video was recorded in the background the final moments of former Gujarat Chief Minister Vijay Rupani being escorted to the boarding gate. Passenger number 12, Rupani, was also confirmed dead in the crash. All that remains now is a painful wait at the civil hospital for the family members, as DNA samples are submitted for mortal remains. It will be a long wait for the loved ones. A closure that may never come for the families of 241 passengers in one of the deadliest aviation disasters in India's history. Bureau Report, India Today.
There are tears, there's grief, but there's also anger. Were there maintenance issues with the aircraft? Now, it will take a long time. Remember, this aircraft had 125,000 litres of aviation turbine fuel. And since it just took off full laden with fuel and it crashed, that fuel got fire. 241 bodies, many cannot be identified. They're charred beyond recognition. And that is why DNA samples will have to be taken. Relatives of those on board AI-171, that Air India flight, they have one hope, that there would be a DNA match that will help them identify their loved ones and perhaps bring some closure. India Today has the biggest team of reporters on ground zero. They're speaking to the families. We bring you their pain as they hope there would be justice.
मेरी सिस्टर की बेटी जी, मैं बॉम्बे से आई यहाँ से। बॉम्बे से आई आप लोग? तो उनको ढूंढ रहे अभी सब लोग। आपको खबर किया गया कि यहाँ पर ऐसे या हाँ सब हो गया। दिस इज वेरी बैड, बट हाउ डिड दिस हैपन कुछ पता नहीं चल रहा है। अगर फ्लाइट ऐसी चलेगी तो नहीं चलेगा। मतलब दुख भी है आपको? और दुख भी है और कुछ एग्रेशन भी है मुझे। गुस्सा भी है कि व्हाई दिस, शी वाज ओनली 32। 2 साल का बच्चा है साथ में। उसके साथ में कितने लोग मैम ट्रैवल थे? उसकी सास भी थी साथ में। सास, बहू और बच्चा कितने साल? 2 साल का।
आकाश हैं जो 15 साल के हैं और बताया जा रहा है कि एक जहां पास में ही एक होटल में जहां पर यह हादसा हुआ, वहां पर एक चाय की टपरी पे वो काम कर रहे थे और उस समय ये प्लेन क्रैश हुआ और उसी समय उनकी मौत हो गई, जबकि इनकी माँ भी वहीं पर थी और वो उस वक्त अभी फिलहाल अस्पताल में है, एडमिटेड हैं, आईसीयू में है, जैसा यहाँ के लोग बता रहे हैं। दादा, मैं आपसे बात कर सकती हूँ?
बात करो तो हमारा भाई मारी बात हम बात कर। आप बहन जोड़ो बात करिए। कम हटियो ला शनिवारी कर वो था।
रहने दीजिए, कोई बात नहीं।
आपका नाम? बात दे तारू नाम तो दे। नाम हुआ कल्पेश भाई है, उसका भाई है बड़ा वाला। आकाश के भाई है, बड़ा वाला
भाई है। और परिवार में माँ की तबीयत कैसी, कुछ पता चला क्या?
अभी पता चला है, अभी ठीक है। उसके साथ थोड़ा जल गए, हाथ जल गए, गर्दन जल गई है उसकी। बरोबर।
लेकिन सरकार की तरफ से कोई मदद की बात की गई है क्या?
अभी कुछ मिला नहीं, बात नहीं हुई अभी तक। नहीं बात।
आपके परिवार में और कौन कौन है?
मैं, मेरा पापा, मेरी बहन, मेरी मम्मी और मेरा भाई चला गया अभी। मेरा भाई चला गया 5 में से।
दोनों भाई थे।
मेरे भाई चला गया, मेरा भाई चाहिए। मेरे को मेरा भाई चाहिए, मुझे कुछ नहीं चाहिए।
सरकार से कुछ कहना?
मेरा भाई चाहिए, मुझे कुछ नहीं चाहिए। मेरा भाई चाहिए मेरे को। मेरे भाई की हालत कैसी है मुझे देखना है, मुझे कोई देखने नहीं जाने देते। कोई नहीं जाने देते मेरे भाई से मिलने के लिए।
आप माँ से मिल पाए?
माँ से नहीं मिल पाए, माँ की तबीयत बरोबर, मेरा भाई से नहीं मिला हुआ मैं। मेरे
सांत्वना रखिए, जरूर थोड़ा सा समय में मिल देंगे शायद, थोड़े समय में सांत्वना
मेरे को अभी मिलना है, मेरे को अभी मिलना है।
There are 265 mortal remains at the civil hospital in Ahmedabad. 241 were on board that aircraft. There is one survivor and then those who died on the ground. An effort is being made perhaps to locate other bodies, if at all, in the debris, and that's the apprehension. But among the 241 on board, 230 were passengers, 10 aircrew and 2 pilots. The 2 pilots, one, the captain, had over 8,200 hours of flying experience. The co-pilot had about 1,100 hours of flying experience, another 300 hours, and he would have been the commander of another plane. But then something went horribly wrong in the cockpit of that aircraft. Or perhaps it's from the cockpit voice recorder and the flight data recorder that truth will finally emerge.
मेरा भाई चला गया अभी, मेरा भाई चला गया 5 बजे।
मैं मेरी मम्मी के लिए आई हूँ, मेरी मम्मी कल से नहीं मिल रही है, कल से हम लोग मम्मी को ढूंढ रहे हैं, कुछ भी पता नहीं चल रहा है।
Among those dead in the Air India crash were 10 cabin crew members and 2 pilots on duty, almost all from Mumbai. Flight's chief, Captain Sumit Sabharwal, in Powai, leaves behind an 80-year-old father in shock. Captain Sabharwal had promised to call on reaching London. Instead, his last recorded call turned out to be the Mayday distress signal to the air traffic control and then radio silence. Air India 171 was piloted by Captain Sabharwal with 8,200 flying hours as per the aviation regulator DGCA and co-piloted by Clive Kundar with experience of 1,100 hours. Actor Vikrant Masse expressed grief, wrote on Kundar's death, a family friend lost to the horrifying tragedy. 27-year-old crew and travel influencer Roshni Sunghare from Dombivali was also on duty on the ill-fated flight. Dreaming big, fulfilling her love for travel and success, till life cut her life short. Deepak Pathak, a resident of Badlapur, was employed with Air India since 11 years. Survived by wife and the parents, family said last conversation was a good morning message and since then the phone was not reachable.
उनके जो पिताजी का स्वभाव भी अच्छा है और उससे बहुत ज़्यादा करके वो बच्चा था, वो सबसे मन में जो मिलता है वो सब बच्चे से लेके बड़े सबको रिस्पेक्ट से बात करता था, सबसे अच्छा हंसमुख के रहता था और बहुत मन में छोकरा था।
मेरी अभी व्हाट्सएप पे तो डेली चैट रहता ही था, गुड मॉर्निंग गुड आफ्टरनून। 2 महीने पहले मेरी उनसे बात हुई थी और हम लोग को भी थोड़ा क्यूरियोसिटी रहती थी कि पायलट और कैबिन क्रू हम लोग डेली पूछते रहते कैसा है, क्या है, किधर ट्रैवल किया।
Meanwhile, 2 families in Manipur have also been engulfed in shock. The family of 21-year-old Nanthoi Sharma Kongbrel Atpam is in agonizing grief, desperately flipping through photo albums. Kongbrel Atpam Nanthoi Sharma and Singson Lamnun Them were on the flight heading to London's Gatwick. Their deaths confirmed by Manipur Chief Minister.
अभी तो सुना कि कोई एक भी नहीं बचा है, लेकिन जैसे भी हो वैसे भी हो, घर का कोई परिवार का कोई दुख तो हो रहा है ना, इसीलिए तो एयर इंडिया से कुछ तो खबर देना चाहिए ना, न इसका उनका कंपनी से न और गवर्नमेंट की तरफ से कोई भी अभी तक नहीं दिया है.
We were devastated, but we don't have any confirmation news. So I don't know. We were hoping that she's staying well and alive in some corner around 2023 April, I think. Just only two and a half years. She was very young when she joined.
Each member on duty serving with courage and pride, dreams of a better life and a long career in aviation industry. Now, a trail of grief left behind. Bureau Report, India Today.
Former Gujarat Chief Minister Vijay Rupani was among the dead. He was on his way to London on board this flight. He was visiting his daughter and also to bring back his wife. He served as the 16th Chief Minister of Gujarat between August 2016 and September 2021. Now, there's something that those who are very close to him, they say that he always considered 1206 as his lucky number. But clearly in the end, it wasn't, because 1206 was everywhere in his life, from the number plate of his first scooter, from his early days to his official car when he was Chief Minister of Gujarat. Now this veteran BJP leader, 1206, for him, it was a lucky number until it wasn't yesterday. 12th of June, 1206, in a very tragic twist of fate, is when he lost his life. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, he knew Vijay Rupani well. They'd worked together very closely, even in Gujarat. He met Vijay Rupani's family, and once he met them, he did express his condolences. But right now, I want to bring you the latest developments in the investigation so far. The probe into that horrific Air India crash is picking up pace. The black box of the AI-171 flight has been recovered from the roof of a building at the crash site. Authorities have collected 216 DNA samples. These samples will help identify the victims. The emergency locator transmitter of the aircraft has also been located. The ELT, or the emergency location transmitter, sends out distress signals to help locate the aircraft in case of an emergency, especially if it's lost in mountains or at sea. Earlier, Prime Minister Narendra Modi visited the crash site, met the lone survivor of the deadly crash along with others who were injured on ground. The probe into the crash is escalating, it's intensifying. Experts are being called in from the United States of America and from United Kingdom. They're flying in to India. They will assist India's Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau, or the AAIB, to ascertain the cause of the accident. So there was one survivor, Vishwas Kumar, who managed to survive the crash. He was on board. There's another survivor. She was lucky because she couldn't board the aircraft. In fact, this is one case of a life spared not by survival but by sheer chance. Bhumi Chauhan from Bharuch was to be on board this flight headed to London. She was to meet her husband, but she reached the airport late. She was told that the boarding was now complete. She couldn't enter. The aircraft was taxiing out at the Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel International Airport. She couldn't board on time. Now that delay, initially when she spoke to India Today, she said it was very frustrating. She thought not only had a lot of money been lost, but she wouldn't be able to meet her husband immediately. But within minutes, when she was driving back home and she realized that that plane had crashed, she said she was numb. She feels it's a new birth, a new life for her. Now, the probe into this horrific Ahmedabad plane crash tragedy is picking up pace. The black box of the Air India AI-171 flight has been located. The Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau, along with the emergency locator transmitter. They will begin their investigations and the black box will reveal the real cause of the accident. The conversation that was taking place within the cockpit, between the cockpit and the ATC or the air traffic controller, every signal, every signature, every move inside the aircraft is recorded in the black box. The Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau team is collecting other evidence from the site. The investigation will receive a boost as there are technical teams from Boeing that are flying in both from the United States, from Seattle and also from the United Kingdom to assist this probe. Preliminary data indicates that the plane's landing gear, it retracted briefly after takeoff, but then was pushed down once again, likely a reaction to perhaps the unexpected loss of engine thrust. All of this, of course, raises multiple questions, and this is speculation at this stage. Was there a double engine failure? Was that the reason for the disaster, or were there other factors at play? So there are several reasons that are currently under investigation. One, a dual engine failure. It's extremely rare. It's happened usually. It's happened, if you recall, when that aircraft landed on the Hudson River. But that was when both the engines collapsed. The plane flew into a flock of birds and both the engines collapsed. But fortunately, the pilot managed to land on the Hudson River. Incorrect flap setting. Now, it's being speculated by several aviation experts that flap should have been at level 5. It wasn't. Some argue it was retracted. There are others who say it's impossible to know from the only picture that's available whether the flaps were deployed properly or not, or were they set at an incorrect angle. Again, it's a matter of investigation. Did the landing gear not retract effectively? Now, there are some aviation experts and pilots who say the moment the aircraft lifts off at 50 feet, the pilot and the co-pilot, there's always check, recheck, counter-check, and when there's a positive liftoff, then the co-pilot is instructed then to retract the landing gear, and then the aircraft, rises. There's a positive rise after that. In this case, did it not happen effectively? Did that reduce the climb efficiency? Again, a matter of investigation. There are some experts who argue that there was performance miscalculation. Logs are indicating that aircraft used the full runway. That's unusual. It does indicate lack of sufficient thrust or perhaps speed, because usually it lifts off much earlier. Was there overloading or a misjudged weight and fuel ratio? Was that an issue that could have resulted in inadequate speed for lift, inadequate thrust for effective lift? Again, it's a matter for investigation. A potential bird hit, because for both engines of a powerful 787-8 to just lose thrust and power or propulsion, it would indicate complete loss of engine power. That reduces the plane's ability or to remain airborne. Was that a reason? It will again be investigations that may reveal the truth. There are some who say that high temperature and thinner air reduces the lift, during takeoff on extremely hot days. Could that have been a factor? But then do keep in mind the pilots were very experienced. 8,200 hours is what the captain of the flight had. Tremendous experience. Maintenance, was that an issue? That's again for investigators to find out. Let me also bring you this report from a simulator where pilots are trained to understand the challenges they face, because data seems to suggest that 65% of all aviation disasters take place either during takeoff or landing when it comes to commercial aircraft. That's when you have to be doubly sure and very, very careful. What went wrong on board this flight? We attempt to find out.
Told us that double engine failure is rare. Even if it happens and the flight has taken off, there are chances that they'll be able to glide it. We have seen it in a couple of movies. It has happened before, but unfortunately what happened in Ahmedabad, it seems like many things went wrong, and seems like the pilots they had no chance.
Absolutely. Yes, ma'am. Basically, the pilots, as a pilot, we are trained to deal with any kind of situation. Single engine being one of them. It's a occurrence which can happen anytime. So pilots are basically trained to handle any kind of situation. But this situation which happened right here is which happened right after takeoff, probably just 200 feet above the ground. And both the engines seems to be dead, totally dead. Fuel starvation or bird strike, any reason can be there. But in this kind of situation, pilots had no choice but to let the aircraft put down straight ahead and pray to God, basically. So one of the things which I noticed in watching all the videos, right after takeoff, they did not put the landing gear up.
Which is the landing gear which you were showing us, where, you know, if it is down, then we don't see the wheels. If it is up, then we see the wheels. So this is something which, we have seen in a lot of videos also. When they land, we see those wheels coming down, and then we see the wheels going up. So usually they do it.
Absolutely. So normally the procedure right after takeoff is the moment we get positive rate of climb, we put the landing gear up because we want the aircraft to reduce drag. In this case, the landing gear was not put up. Most probably the reason why they did it was they immediately sensed something is wrong. And they did not retracted the landing gear so that upon crash, the landing gear can take some impact and minimize the damage caused to the aircraft. So we are currently at Ahmedabad runway 23. So we are going to take off and we are going to simulate twin engine failure and kind of, see what actually could have happened. And you will yourself realize there's not a whole lot pilot could have done in this case.
You are saying that the situation that occurred, there was not much that the pilots could have done?
Yes, ma'am. Because although we are trained to handle single engine failures right on takeoff, but both engine failure is something which is extremely, extremely rare. And in this scenario, if the pilots had some height, they would have able to come down and glide and land back at the runway or some other safer airfield. Or if it was a single engine failure, then absolutely it was not a problem. They could have immediately come back and land. They could have flown for some time also. But as we said, in this case, there is nothing left in the hands of the pilots.
Aviation disasters are studied across the world because if it can impact passengers in India, it can have an impact anywhere in the world. And that is why aircraft accidents are studied very, very closely. We're slipping into a quick break, but don't go anywhere. On the other side, there's an aviation expert, a flying pilot, Captain Steve. He's looking at these images and he explains what could have gone wrong in that final moments after the liftoff. Those details coming up.
Edge 60 Pro, the edge of excellence.
Dangerously cool. Go, stop, go. Playing this game like a tic-tac-toe. Sharp as a razor, the flavor bowl. Flip it out, they wanna fold. Keeping them coming.
Motorola Razr 60, dangerously cool.
Hello, Moto.
Motorola Razr 60, dangerously cool.
Hi, here are the top headlines presented by Motorola. PM Modi meets the survivor of plane crash. Emergency landing of Air India flight in Thailand. Khamenei says Israel will face severe punishment.
Number 1 at 8 p.m. Number 1 at 9 p.m. All sides of the story. India Today TV, the ultimate democratic newsroom.
Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices. Amplify your brand with 100 million smart internet viewers. To advertise, mail us at sales@aajtak.com.
The Boeing 787-8 Dreamliner is considered amongst the safest in the world. It's flying with several top airlines, not just in India or Japan or in the United States of America, almost across the world. But the Ahmedabad tragedy has brought the focus on this aircraft, and there are pilots across the world who are trying to understand what could possibly have gone wrong. There's a pilot in Europe, Captain Steve. He's looking at these images and he's trying to assess what could have gone wrong. We bring you more in this report.
To look at what we see, and I'm going to stop it here as the airplane comes into the frame. The airplane looks to be kind of normal, but what we do know is this: the landing gear is still down. Now, this airplane is well beyond the point of rotation and climb out where they would have raised the gear. That's done at about 50 feet off the ground. And so more on that in a minute. What we also see is both engines. We don't know if they're producing thrust, but what we don't see out of the engines is any sort of flame, any sort of sparks. We don't see any indication that they're not operating normally. Now, everybody's been talking about a power loss, and I've watched a bunch of videos and people on the different channels talking about this. And they say, well, it was a power loss, and that's why the airplane descended and crashed. Let me be specific with this. This was a loss of lift. It could have been caused by a power loss. So that's theory number one, is that they lost power on both engines. That caused the loss of lift. The airplane stopped flying. It started flying at one point. It was flying normally as the nose lifted off. Before they raised the gear, the airplane lost lift and stopped flying. So what would have caused that? Well, if both engines failed, it was just one of two things. Either they ran through a flock of birds and basically destroyed both engines at once. The reason I don't think that's a likely theory is we don't see any birds in the picture. It would have had to be a lot of birds to foul out both engines, and we don't see any indications coming out of the back of the engine that happened. You'd see flames, you'd see sparks, you'd see something as those engines were kind of coming apart. It's smoke at a minimum, so you don't see any of that stuff. It looks as though the engines are intact and they're running. They could have both flamed out because of fuel contamination. That's the one thing that both engines would have in common, is the fuel. The problem with that theory, at least in my opinion, is that as they pushed up the power to go down the runway, they would have had the indications of a sputtering engine if the fuel had been contaminated. There's no indication that they did. They roll down the runway, and I'll show you that video in a minute. They rotate at the normal speed. They take a nose-up attitude, which is really normal for that airplane at that speed. Everything else happens after that. So I don't think they lost power on the engines. Now, we could find out in a day or two that's exactly what happened, and that's what caused the loss of lift. But that's theory number one. Theory number two is that they took off without the flaps out. They took up with flaps up. The problem with that, and it would be indicative of the way the airplane kind of wallowed into the air and then came back down. The problem with that theory is this: they would have had to get through two complete checklists and not put the flaps down, because two checklists on that airplane, and they're electronic checklists, they're integral to the airplane. It's not like a paper checklist that you hold. So the airplane literally will not let you taxi out and take off without the flaps deployed properly for that weight and that airport that you're at. All that stuff is determined ahead of time. So they would have had to manually override both of those checklists, then for some unexplained reason, take the runway. And once you put the power up in a 787, just like my 777, once you put the power up, the airplane knows you intend to go flying. If you're not configured for flight, in other words, your flaps are not deployed, it makes a racket. A big red light comes up and says config warning, and then both master caution lights in front of both pilots flash, and then a horn goes off, and it's deafening. It's inconceivable that they would have continued on with that takeoff roll with a configuration warning in front of them just to rotate and then flounder into the community off the end of the runway. So is it possible that that was what happened? It is possible. Same as with the power loss. Anything is possible here. We don't have all the details. The airplane has plenty of lift over the wings, has plenty of thrust going on, and now those big landing gear, the drag devices now have been brought up into the airplane, and man, it takes off like a rocket. That part never happens. Right here, as we're looking at this airplane, the gear should be coming up into the airplane. It never does. Let me play it a little bit longer, and then I'm going to tell you why I think it didn't. Right there is the point where the pilot fly would normally bring the airplane up to about 12 degrees nose up. The gear should be almost completely up into the airplane at this point. It hasn't budged an inch. You're going to see on a 787 the ends of the wings start to bend a little bit. They usually bend a lot more than this airplane. Why? Because as the airplane's picking up speed and it's picking up lift over those wings, those composite wings really bend. That is an indication, a visual indication, they're really getting a lot of lift. This 787 is not getting a lot of lift right now, but nothing's going on with the engines as far as I can see. Now, let me continue with this. At this point, watch the nose. It starts to go over right there. It starts to come back over. Why is it doing that? Here's what I think happened. And again, folks, this is just my opinion. This is a theory, that one theory among many. Any of the others I could have shared with you up to this point could be absolutely right. But why do I think this one is more likely than the other two? Here's why. I think the pilot flying said to the co-pilot, gear up at the appropriate time. I think the co-pilot grabbed the flap handle and raised the flaps instead of the gear. If that happened, and this is a big if that happened, this explains a lot of why this airplane stopped flying, why the lift over the wings died. Because at that point now, the flaps are retracting, all that extra lift you're producing in the wings goes away. You're already slow, you already got the power pushed up all the way. This airplane's as heavy as it's ever gonna be in this flight, and you still got those great big landing gear out there producing all sorts of drag. This is a bad combination at this point. You see the nose now start to come over. Now, why would the nose come over? Because the airplane is trying to create as much lift as it can over those wings. And if the flaps are coming up, it's going to nose over to get even more airflow over those wings. That's going to be a very, very uncomfortable feeling for the pilot at the controls. Why? Because he's losing airspeed and he's going to begin to lose altitude now. Remember, he thinks the gear has come up. He might not know that the flaps came up. He just sees a motion over next to him, and he's looking outside going, wait, what's going on? It's all very confusing, and it all happens in a split second. Let's watch. The airplane starts to settle in. It starts to now descend. You see the pilot start to pull the nose up a little bit more, okay? As he's getting closer to the ground, he's probably got the power pushed up all he can, and now I think he's going to get into a power on stall. Not enough lift is being produced by those wings. All that drag is being produced by the landing gear that's still out there. Could anything have saved the day at this point? Maybe if they'd raised the gear. Maybe if they'd raised the gear and put the flaps back out, but it's very unlikely that once this gets to this point that they can recover from it. And now watch what happens. The airplane begins to kind of wallow, right? The pilot pulls back even more on the nose. That aggravates the whole thing. And now you get this waddle into the ground, and it's in a controlled power on stall until it impacts the ground. And it's just sad. It's been a very bitter time in aviation, and we see now the loss for the first time of a 787. I hope in the long run that that's the last 787 crash we ever have to witness, whether it was over in India or here in the US or over in the UK, anywhere around the world. We don't want to have to do commentary on any of these such accidents. Now, in the days to come, as we get the black box information, I've heard that the NTSB is going over to India to help. I've heard Boeing is headed over there to help. We're going to hopefully get information sooner rather than later from those sources. And as we do, we will bring you additional information, amplifying information, and if I need to make a correction, I'll be the first guy to make it.
This is truly heartbreaking. Investigations, of course, will now perhaps reveal the real reasons why AI-171 crashed. That is all I have for you on this special broadcast. Many thanks for watching. News and updates continue on India Today. Stay with us.
Weather forecast now. Delhi, maximum 46 and minimum 32 degrees. Mumbai, maximum 30 and minimum 25 degrees. Kolkata, maximum 37 and minimum 27 degrees. Bangalore, maximum 30 and minimum 20 degrees. Chennai, maximum 35 and minimum 26 degrees. Hyderabad, maximum 32 and minimum 24 degrees.
Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices. Amplify your brand with 100 million smart internet viewers. To advertise, mail us at sales@aajtak.com.
Sorry. दोस्त दोस्त ना रहा, यार यार ना रहा, एलान मस्त मुझे तेरा एतबार ना रहा, एतबार ना रहा. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, trump raha na mera yaar. Up above the world so high, एतबार नहीं है भाई, एतबार नहीं है भाई. भरोसा तुम पे करके मैं व्हाइट हाउस में एंट्री दी। वो मेरे दोस्त तुम ही थे, तुम ही तो थे। इलेक्शन में जिताया था, पैसा भी बहाया था। वो मेरे दोस्त तुम ही थे, तुम ही तो थे। बिखर गई है दोस्ती, अब वो प्यार ना रहा। दोस्ती पे अब मुझे एतबार ना रहा, एतबार ना रहा।
Co-powered by अच्छा किया इंश्योरेंस लिया। रामाया यूनिवर्सिटी, लीड, इनोवेट एंड ट्रांसफॉर्म द वर्ल्ड।
You're watching India Today for the last a little now, over 24 hours. We've been reporting live. Right behind me is the crash site. You can see the mess of the Vijay hostel. The latest information, viewers, just about a little over 1 hour. There has been a big breakthrough where investigations are concerned. I want to take you through. The black box has been recovered. Sources say the black box was found on the building rooftop. DGCA have ordered inspection of the AI Boeing fleet as well. And the Air India now will carry out additional maintenance of 787. So the DGCA has come out with a new protocol in terms of maintenance and there are new norms as per the DGCA. But to take you through on the importance of the recovery of the black box, right behind me, that is where the black box has been recovered. You can see the tail end of AI-171 and at the tail end assembly was where the black box was recovered on 3 counts, viewers. The recovery becomes very, very important. Number one, all conversations in the cockpit now will be, which were recorded in the black box, will be revealed, and that's very, very important. Number two, all machine sounds, beeps, distress signals, all of that now will also be recorded. Number three, over 1,000 parameters on the mechanical front will be embedded where the black box is concerned. Even though investigations are going to continue for months on what is recovered from the black box, at least in the next 48 to 72 hours, there will be an understanding whether or not other Boeing 787s need to be grounded, or is it just limited of what happened yesterday, limited to this particular flight alone. So in that aspect, it's all the way more important. Also, will there be far-reaching implications because Boeing has sent a team. There are teams coming in from across the world to study the air crash right here in Gujarat, Ahmedabad. I want to cut across to my colleague because there are two sides to the story. One, the tactical investigation side. They found the black box right here, and the other one is the human side. The human side is the one that has taken the maximum toll. In terms of the enormity of the catastrophe. And if there is a picture of that, because that is playing out at the civil hospital in Ahmedabad, where till now the death toll has been confirmed at 265. It is going to rise, unfortunately, because those on ground, some of them have been critical. Air India has already announced that out of 242 passengers on board, 241 have been killed. There have been one, you could call it a Hail Mary moment where this crash was concerned, one lone survivor who actually practically walked out of the wreckage. I want to cut across right now to my colleague Vijay, who's been joining us from the civil hospital. Grief, Vijay, is one of the toughest assignments for a reporter to document. You've been speaking to the family members over the course of the last 24 hours. It's not easy. Bodies have been moved out from the post-mortem area, the mortuary, which has been overflowing because one needs to get now an understanding with their DNA samples of loved ones might be collected. We've been told that over 200 DNA samples have been collected. Only 8 bodies have been handed over to relatives because only 8 bodies are recognizable. The rest, the toll is 260 viewers. The rest are charred beyond recognition. So DNA samples have been collected ever since the course of last evening. And with the record of that DNA samples, the doctors at the civil hospital, there have been teams that have been flown in from across the country, will try and match whether it matches with not just bodies, because unfortunately so was the catastrophe that the remains have come in terms of body parts as well. It's going to be a massive exercise that the civil hospital in Ahmedabad would need to carry out. Right now, Vidya, I believe they've given a window of 72 hours, but with what most doctors seem to suggest and tell us, it could be a long winding wait for, the loved ones, the families who've been here, hoping at least, to give a graceful funeral to their loved ones in a death that has been so public.
In fact, Preeti, I've been speaking to families, and one thing is what I felt is specifically is that, yesterday when I came in from Mumbai, when I spoke to people, they seemed to be understanding, but as the hours pass, as the time is ticking, we see quite a little bit of restlessness. I was speaking to a couple of families today, and they were mostly of the opinion that, they have been waiting and the wait seems endless, though they have been told 72 hours of wait is something that is mandatory because that is what the procedure will take. But it is every few hours that the hours are passing by, the families seem to be getting a little restless. In fact, some of them that we have been speaking to, one of the family member was very specifically said that, all that the administration has done is to tell them that wait for a phone call. Now, this one wait for a phone call is for the next 72 hours is something extremely difficult for a family that is grieving to hold on to, make sure, and especially remember, there are families back home. There are people here who are there waiting to take bodies, take a handover of the body. They have to travel all the way to their villages where the rest of the family, the rest of the village is waiting for their loved dear ones' bodies to arrive. So, and for the final funeral to take place and for them to get a closure. But certainly in this, the restlessness is definitely increasing.
Well, with their proverbial closure is far right now for at least what we've been told, 240 families. Because they've given their blood samples, they've been waiting. I spent all of last night at the staging area where they are conducting DNA sampling. And there are families grief-stricken. They've come from far. They're just sitting there. They're hoping it will happen in a couple of hours. Constantly, the authorities are going to them and telling them, listen, it's going to take at least 3 days. But they're not leaving the site. They're just sitting there. I had a conversation, and I think, as a journalist, it's a conversation I will remember. I spoke to an old couple and their son, daughter, and grandchildren were on board this ill-fated flight, and they said, you know, uska phone abhi bhi ring kar raha hai. His phone is still ringing. This was despite Air India declaring 241 dead on flight AI-171. It's, you know, I wish it on no one of the scenes that have played out at the civil hospital since last night. I want to just take our viewers back, because what you see right behind me is the crash site. This is the physical manifestation of one of India's biggest air disasters, aviation disasters, where Vidya is the civil hospital, is the emotional manifestation, and that is far more overbearing of what you see just behind me. This is what we recorded, my camera person Sanjay and I. If catastrophe had a picture, it would be this. As I have walked in over the last 1 kilometer, all I have seen, and I will show you, in time, there are fires which are still being put out, and this is the tail end of the aircraft, of what you can see on the crash landing of AI-171 London bound. I want to immediately try and get, our viewers a sense in terms of what really happened. I have a nurse, because this was a hostel for medical students. I have a staff nurse who works at the, Ashram quarters. She lives at the Ashram quarters, which is right next to this particular hostel. And ma'am, सबसे पहले अपना नाम बताएं.
मेरा नाम है आरती साधु. मैं यहाँ सिविल हॉस्पिटल में काम करती हूँ. आई डिपार्टमेंट में हूँ. मैं नाइट करके आई और सब रेस्ट कर रही थी दोपहर.
कहाँ पे है आपका घर?
हमारा यहाँ पीछे के साइड है. आश्रय मिथिला क्वार्टर्स है हमारा.
बिल्कुल साथ.
हाँ, बिल्कुल सामने है. जो आश्रय मिथिला क्वार्टर्स है ना, यहाँ ये पीछे का रास्ता है, वो पहले आता है. हाँ, तो हम सो रहे थे, तो एक धड़ाका हुआ, तो हमने देखा, तो बाहर निकले तो सब धुआं और आग फैली हुई थी चारों तरफ. सब आग, कुछ दिखता ही नहीं था, बस धुआं दिखता था.
I'll give you a sense. About over 1,000 rescue personnel on ground. You know, they are from the CISF, the Rapid Action Force, the RPF, the Coast Guard. कब से हैं सर आप यहाँ पर?
1:30 बजे से.
1:30 बजे से. क्या देखा सर? अपना नाम बताएंगे.
MJ सोलन के फायर ऑफिसर.
हाँ जी.
देखा तो नहीं, मैं बाहर वार्डो में था विजिट में. वहाँ से कॉल आया कि प्लेन क्रैश हुआ है, तो हम इधर आए.
तब से यहाँ पर हैं. So that's the.
बॉडी निकल रही.
हाँ जी.
बॉडी बहुत निकल रही.
बॉडी बहुत. I'm standing at the crash site, and this was the cockpit side, the front of the plane, and then if you go all the way back, you can see the tail end as well. And what you can actually see is a visual of absolute catastrophe. The tragedy and the scale of it can be counted, viewers, if you look at the strewn clothes, medicine, slippers. I saw a watch of all the passengers who were on board. This was the business class section, and those who have been standing here tell us that this is where most, and probably Mr. Rupani, the first class section and the business class section, bodies were pulled out. What you can smell is fuel, because it was a plane which was loaded with about 90 to 100 tons of ATF, air turbine fuel, and you can smell it in the air. You can smell, the smoke, the aircraft burning still, and you can smell, that lingering smell of burning flesh. The tragedy and the scale of it is numbing, to say the least. I have with me, sir, क्या नाम है आपका?
नितिन शाह.
नितिन शाह. आप RSS से हैं?
जी.
यहाँ पे सुबह से हैं?
हाँ, जब से
दोपहर मतलब?
नियर अबाउट 2:30.
नियर अबाउट 2:30.
3 o'clock.
मदद के लिए आए?
जी.
जब आप आए तो आपने क्या देखा?
एक्चुअली पहले पता चला था, वहाँ से यहाँ पे तो पूरा फायर था. नियर अबाउट 4 o'clock तक पूरा यहाँ पे आने जैसा जगह नहीं था. एक्चुअली जो हुआ ना, आप कैमरा पे वहाँ पे बताएंगे ना, कि लास्ट में जो बिल्डिंग है ना, लास्ट वहाँ पे टेल, हाँ वो थोड़ा हुआ था और उसकी वजह से पूरा यहाँ पे आके लैंड हो गया डिस्ट्रॉय। और करीबन 30-35 मिनट तक तो धुआं ही था, कोई आया नहीं था यहाँ पे।
आप कब पहुंचे?
मैं करीबन 3 o'clock में यहाँ पे आ गया था बाहर।
तब बॉडीज को लेके जा रहे हैं?
हाँ, बॉडी सब चल रहा था।
जो एक सर्वाइवर है, आपने देखा?
सर्वाइवर
जिंदा
ना, सर्वाइवर वे तो जो पहले ही निकल गए थे। जैसे स्टार्ट हुआ ना नियर बाय, उनको ये बिल्डिंग है ना, बिल्डिंग के पीछे मिले थे वो। हाँ, ये बिल्डिंग के पीछे मिले थे वो। और वो करीबन 3 o'clock के आसपास उनको तो लेके गए थे। थोड़ा बहुत लोकल इंजरी था, यहाँ पे एडमिट किया था और करीबन अभी 7-1 बजे तो उनको छुट्टी भी दे दिया है। बाकी लगभग कोई नहीं बचा है।
तो आपने मदद किया एक जैसे?
जी हाँ, एक्चुअली जिस टाइम हम आए थे उस टाइम पर तो ऐसा था कि पूरा जो भी बॉडी वगैरह था पूरा ब्लेंड था, तो काफ़ी दिक्कत भी हुई। 4 से 5 बॉडी तो हमने भी हाथ से लगाकर भेजा था यहाँ पे से। और इनिशियली स्टाफ वगैरह गवर्नमेंट का जो भी आया, उसके पहले कई ऑटो रिक्शा वाले, कई प्राइवेट टैक्सी वगैरह वाले, उन्होंने भी सपोर्ट किया। वो भी यहाँ से बॉडी को लेके गए थे।
कहाँ से?
हम गुजरात से, अहमदाबाद से। यहीं पे रहते हो?
किसी एजेंसी से जुड़े हैं?
नहीं मैम।
मदद के लिए आए?
मदद के लिए।
कब से?
3 बजे से।
आप भी 3 बजे से? आपने क्या देखा?
बस ऐसे ही है, बड़ा सा धमाका हुआ यहाँ पे और हम लोग सब देखने यहाँ पे आए तो बहुत बड़ा प्रॉब्लम था। सब भाग रहे थे यहाँ से यहाँ वहाँ तक। फिर हम लोग यहाँ पे देखने आए तो बहुत पोजीशन बहुत खराब था, कुछ कहने जैसा नहीं है अभी।
तब से आप यहाँ से जो
हाँ बॉडी सब वो
जो हॉस्टल में जो लोग थे
करीबन 15 से 20 लोग थे मैडम।
मदद किया?
मदद, हाँ।
यहाँ से भी बॉडी
हाँ
हॉस्टल के अंदर।
हाँ जी हाँ जी।
This is what it looks like. It's over a course of about 600 meters. This building right there, completely charred. There's smoke still bellowing from one of the floors. I'll ask Sanjay to actually, zero in there. And this is what it looks like for about 300 meters. The smell of fuel, and that is nauseating. About 90 to 100 tons of air turbine fuel. It was a fully loaded aircraft as it was taking over. The fire department there is still at it. It's late in the night trying to put out the blaze. It's spread out. Like I said, it's a disaster zone. And there are fires all across with multiple blocks and buildings of this hostel. What we've also been told is that the aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau is also there. Members of that, they've cordoned off this area right at the end. This is the tail end of the aircraft, and this is where the tail end assembly is, where the black box is supposed to be of this aircraft. We've spoken to some of these officials, and they say that it wouldn't, because at the time of impact and the crash, the impact was curtailed. Usually, when there is a Dreamliner kind of crash, then the debris is spread out and it gets very difficult to actually, find the black box. And here, as per these investigative officers, they did speak to me off record, and they did, some of them say that it could be easier to actually get hold of the black box. One which is at the tail end assembly of the aircraft, and one which was a little, at the beginning of the same aircraft. A brand new football, clearly for a child. There's a tiffin, a snack box for a kid. You can see raisins, nuts, healthy snacks for a child. Handsplast, basically a band-aid for kids. All of that, and then there's a temple right here. God's watching. Sometimes it does make you question on the existence of God. Right there, Sanjay will show you all the luggage which has been strewn about. The officials there, one by one, picking up each piece of that luggage, putting it right there. so that doesn't get taken. And you can see the cops here guarding the luggage right there. Now this is the Vijay Medical College mess. This is where maximum fatalities and casualties have taken place, because this is where the aircraft crashed and made maximum impact. And you can actually see the tail end of the aircraft actually right there, plowing through the mess. And it was lunch hour, and many of the students there were actually getting their lunch. Everything is in shambles. Sanjay will actually show you the Junior Medical Association plaque right there. And this was what we've been told, the mess area. This is where the young students there were eating their lunch when the plane tore into the building, taking many lives. Let's try and get up. This is, like I said, the mess area. Brick, mortar, remains of the aircraft, the debris, mattresses, and broken dreams of young lives who wanted to make it big. All sitting, eating lunch, not knowing that a plane is going to ram into their building. That's the wheel of the aircraft. That's the tail end of the body. You can actually see a part of the Maharaja Air India's logo right there. Mattresses of students' rooms, their beds there, and blood stains. And this was the mess. Sanjay will just show you, this was the mess. And this is all but destroyed. And this is where the young students were sitting there grabbing lunch. And you can actually see the remnants of hostel life strewn, slippers, sweatshirts. I just want to take you through, because the students were right here. Their mattresses strewn. We can see splattered blood all over. This was the area where the plane rammed in, and where the students were actually getting their lunch. You can actually, I'll ask my camera person Sanjay to show you the remnants of student life. You know, slippers, sweatshirts, young medical students, all here having absolutely no idea that an aircraft would slam into them. So just want to take you through. This was the mess area. The police now clearing all of us from here, and understandably, because a lot of press right here. Brand new shirts of young medical students, you can see. This is the mess area right here. Tables, benches, and you know, this is heartbreaking. Clearly somebody was eating his meal right here. And I can, you know, I've counted the number of thalis, that more than 25. This is where they were sitting. Sanjay, just turn around. I'll ask Sanjay, and then you can get a view of how the aircraft actually slammed into this building. That is what I showed you right there. That's the tail end of that aircraft. This is the, you know, the tables, the benches, and you can see their meal uneaten right here. Don't want to give in numbers right now because there's no real confirmation, and that won't be responsible to do so. But what we've been given to understand, maximum fatalities have happened right here. All of the clothes that you see strewn around, some of them have been, because most of the students were burnt, charred. Some of them had injuries who were taken, and you can see actually blood-splattered walls. What we've been told, maximum fatalities from here. The area now is being sanitized slowly, one by one. The press is being escorted out, because this is where, I met one of the officers from the investigative agency, and they were the ones who've been looking for debris right here. So they're sanitizing this area right now. This is the Vijay medical mess of the hostel here. Right opposite it, to give our viewers an understanding, this is the mess area Downstairs was the recreation area, mess in terms of the kitchen, and on the sides you can see a lot of blocks which we showed you earlier. Those are the blocks, the hostel blocks. Those are the ones which are completely charred on fire. But in terms of impact, you see right at the end, the part of the plane, that was the plane that rammed in, right the tail end of the aircraft. This was the first impact that the plane made with a building, and it started from here and then rammed. The entire Dreamliner, caved in and crash landed ahead. So maximum damage is in this particular area. So 108 for the ambulance. आप 108 की टीम से हैं. So these are the ones who came in. They were the distress call. 108 दबाने से आप लोग आते हैं, एम्बुलेंस टीम आती है. विकास भाई, आपको फोन आया, आप कितने बजे पहुंचे यहाँ? आपका पूरा टीम कितना एम्बुलेंस के साथ आया?
शायद 5 मिनट में तो ज्यादा से ज्यादा सब 105 4 से 5 आ गई थी यहाँ पे. मेघारी नगर आई थी, चमनपुरा और ये चामुंडा ब्रिज.
तो आपका
कॉल नहीं आया था, जस्ट लोग हम खाना खा रहे थे. हमारे यहाँ से 200 मीटर की दूरी पे हमारी ऑफिस है, 1200 बेड हॉस्पिटल. 1200 बेड यहाँ से 200 मीटर दूर है, 1200 बेड कैंप सिविल हॉस्पिटल है. तो वहाँ पे हम खाना खा रहे थे, मतलब खाना खाने बैठे थे. टिफिन हमने सब खोल दिया था. जैसे हमने खोला सब ब्लास्ट हुआ, बहुत सारा धुआं और आग निकलने. तो वहाँ से हम खाना छोड़ के, नहीं कॉल नहीं आया था, सीधा हम सर्वाई के लिए चले गए.
मेरे पे कॉल आया था, मेरे चामुंडा ब्रिज को कॉल आया था. ज्यादा से 5 मिनट में यहाँ में पहुंच गया था, 5 से 7 मिनट में यहाँ पे पहुंच गया था. जैसे मैं पे पहुंचा तो 2 जन चल के आ रहे थे.
2 जन चल के आ रहे थे. आग लगा हुआ था. आग लगा हुआ था पूरे में, बॉडी में
आग लगा था, पूरा ब्लैक हो गया था. और जैसे मैं यहाँ पे आया,
2 जन चल रहा था.
2 जन,
एक नहीं 2 जन चल रहा थे.
और जैसे लेके इसका एक का नाम था भास्कर, जो जिंदा है अभी जिंदा है. वो आपके पास आया. और EMT में था, मैडम थे.
आप लेके गए? आप दोनों जन को लेके गए?
हाँ, दोनों.
दूसरे जन का नाम मालूम?
नहीं, दूसरे जन का मालूम नहीं.
एक वो खुद बोल रहा था भास्कर
नाम बोलता है भास्कर.
तो मुझे फिर से बताओ, आप लोग बाहर खड़े थे तो ये 2 जन आए, इनमें आग लगा हुआ था.
2-3 लोग
उनको लेके आए, उन लोगों को, और वो खुद चल के आ रहे थे. तो पहले आग बुझाया?
हाँ, आग नहीं, जो बॉडी जल गई थी, पूरा ब्लैक हो गया था
दोनों का.
तो 2 साथ में लेके आ रहे थे. जैसे हमें 108 में बाहर आता बिठा लिए अंदर.
तो आपने ये 2 लोगों को अपना
10
एम्बुलेंस में बिठाया. फिर बताएं.
वो EMT मैडम थी, भावना मैडम,
वहाँ लेके गए. आप कौन सा अस्पताल? सिविल हॉस्पिटल यहाँ से लेके गए. कितना टाइम में पहुँच गए?
ज्यादा से ज्यादा 2-3 मिनट ही यहाँ से होते हैं. 2-3 मिनट ज्यादा से ज्यादा.
तो 3 मिनट आप भास्कर और जो एक और उनके साथ थे, दोनों को लेके पहुँच गए. क्या कह रहे थे भास्कर?
बस वही बोल रहे थे कि मेरा नाम भास्कर है. बस वही बोल रहे थे.
बस वही बार बार यही बोल रहे थे कि मेरा नाम भास्कर है, और लेके गए. दूसरे वहाँ पे था, उनका हालत वैसा ही था जैसे भास्कर का था?
ऐसा ही था हालत. दोनों की हालत ऐसी ही थी.
जो दूसरे थे वो बोल रहे थे कुछ?
वो भी नहीं, कुछ बोल नहीं रहे थे.
वो कुछ नहीं बोल रहे थे, पर वो भी चल के आए थे. दोनों का हालत कैसा लगा आपको देख के?
पूरा जैसा बॉडी जल गया होगा ऐसा हो गया था. पूरा ब्लैक हो गया था
दोनों का.
हाँ.
और यहाँ आप इमरजेंसी में लेके गए उन दोनों को, और फिर
ट्रॉमा सेंटर में
आप लेके गए.
हाँ.
और उनको वहाँ पे छोड़ा, वापस इधर आए.
हाँ.
और फिर आपको कोई मतलब और जो यहाँ पे जो जिंदा लोग लेके गए, या सिर्फ बॉडीज लेके गए? इसके बाद
जले हुए तो शायद 8-9 जनों को हमारी गाड़ी ले गई.
बॉडीज?
एम्बुलेंस.
मतलब वो तब सर्वाइवर नहीं था? नहीं था. आप जब आए, आपने क्या देखा? कितने लोगों को रेस्क्यू किया?
मैंने मैडम 3-4 जिंदा बंदी को ले गया. और
जो लेके गए वो स्टूडेंट थे? हॉस्टल से लेके गए या मेस से?
बाहर से जैसे वो लाए थे हम.
कैसे लेके गए आप उनको? लेते स्टूडेंट्स थे सारे?
नहीं, स्टूडेंट नहीं, यहाँ से ले गए. स्टूडेंट ही शायद.
और कितना लोग लेके गए यहाँ से?
लगभग 3-4 आदमी जिंदा लेके गए, और 6 बॉडीज भी लेके गए.
सुबह से, दोपहर से ही आप यहाँ पर लगे हुए हैं. आपका नाम सर?
प्रवीण भाई.
कहाँ से, कौन सा? आप भी यहाँ पे 108 से आए?
108 एम्बुलेंस से.
अभी 1:45 से?
अभी 2 बजे से इधर खड़े थे.
कितना रेस्क्यू किया आपने?
अपने 4 किया.
4 लोग?
हाँ.
जिंदा
1 किया, और 3
बॉडीज, 3 डेड बॉडी. standing right now, it's close to midnight, at the civil hospital, right next to the mortuary and the post-mortem room. The mortuary, the post-mortem room, there is no room there anymore for bodies that have been brought in. Some of them still are coming in. 2 bodies have just come in at this point of time from the accident site. I'm standing right here where I would think if you're a loved one or family of somebody in an accident, you would dread to be here, because the loved ones, the families here lining up, not in hope of finding their loved one alive in the hospital, recuperating, recovering, but here giving their DNA samples, because the bodies that have been retracted from the wreckage of the Dreamliner are completely charred with 6 to 7 degree burns, and they cannot be identified. Some of them even just body parts. And that's why the families, they're giving their DNA sample to match with the bodies there. So at least, maybe in death, they can be accorded a graceful funeral. So basically, over 150 families have already come in. They've given their DNA samples to be matched with the bodies that have brought in. I was speaking to the lady there. She's a staffer here at the civil hospital, and what she says is that in their entire list of that they have, there is only one person who's not in, and that's the name of the survivor.
Basically, state government has, after this incident, made an order for IS officers to look in various capacities. So I'm looking after this DNA sampling exercise that we are doing here.
So how many family members have already come and given their DNA?
Around for 200 individuals, families have come.
200 DNA samples are already...
I mean, samples can be less. For example, if there are 2 members in one family and then one person who is directly related to them must have given sample. So that is likely to be slightly less than that.
But about 200 people have come in to give their DNA samples. And do we have a count in terms of right now who are still missing, the bodies that have been brought in?
No, this is not our mandate here. I mean, we have been assigned this responsibility. I can comment on that only, yes.
So all you're saying is that right now about over 200. And they've come from, are these just the bodies, or are these just the family members of those on the aircraft, or also...
They can be both. I mean, we are not restricting to that. So anybody who feels that, their family members are missing either due to the crash or they were passengers, so they can be both.
So, and you're looking at that. So this help desk is going to run from when to when?
It shall remain 24/7.
24/7.
मेरा नाम रोनित सिंह नाम है।
रोनित, आप लोकल हैं?
हाँ, यहाँ मैं लोकल रहता हूँ। पास में ही मेरा घर है। जब ब्लास्ट हुआ तो मैं बैठा था, खाना वाना खा रहा था और निकले हम लोग तुरंत ही। तो हम लोग ब्लास्ट की जगह पे पहुंचे। वहाँ पे प्लेन क्रैश हुआ था, किसी को अलाउड नहीं कर रहे थे अंदर जाना। तो मैं मेरे कुछ फ्रेंड्स हम लोग मिल के हम लोग यहाँ पे जो पीएम रूम है वहाँ पे पहुंचे। वहाँ मनीष सुतरिया साहब है जो हेड है, वो मेरे वहाँ पे वो अकेले और कुछ स्टाफ वाले ही काम कर रहे थे। बॉडीज आ रही थी, फिर हम लोगों ने सबने मिल के वहाँ पे बॉडीज को उठाया। फिर ये रूम पूरा पीएम रूम पैक हो गया था, इतनी बॉडीज थी।
पोस्टमार्टम रूम पूरा
पैक हो गया। जो फ्रोजन एरिया था वहाँ पे भी बॉडीज थी। जो पीछे का बैक साइड का जो सामने बैक साइड का फ्रोजन एरिया वो भी पैक हो गया। फिर उन लोगों ने हमको बोला कि आप लोग थोड़ी हेल्प कर रहे हैं तो अब बॉडीज को आगे ट्रोमा सेंटर, जो पुराना ट्रोमा सेंटर था वहाँ पे ले जाइए। फिर हम लोग वहाँ पे लेके गए ट्रोमा सेंटर को। और ट्रोमा सेंटर में से जितनी वहाँ पे से, क्योंकि एम्बुलेंस आ रही थी, हमने सारी एम्बुलेंस को वहाँ पे रोका और वहाँ से हम लोग ने बॉडीज को अंदर रवाना किया।
अब यहाँ पर आप हेल्प कर रहे हैं?
यहाँ पे कैसा है कि जो वहाँ पे से सब जो विक्टिम्स है अभी उन लोग के सब
बॉडीज हैं
उनके
बहुत ज्यादा जले हुए हैं।
किसी का हाथ नहीं, किसी का एक बच्चा आया था उसका सिर खाली सिर था। बहुत हालत खराब, वो सिर भी इतनी हालत खराब थी उनकी कि हम लोगों ने उनको उठा के जली हुई बॉडी, क्योंकि एम्बुलेंस में ऐसे आ रही थी, एम्बुलेंस में से स्ट्रेचर में ले रहे थे। स्ट्रेचर में कैसे फिर हम लोगों ने खुद ने कफन जो आते कपड़ा मंगवाया, कपड़े से भर के हम लोग तुरंत ही उसको अंदर भेजना चालू किया। तो ये जो फैमिलीज आ रही है वो सारी बाहर से कुछ लोग हैं, उन लोग के डीएनए ले रहे हैं। यहाँ पे
करने के लिए, क्योंकि बॉडीज बहुत ज्यादा चार्ड हैं।
ले रहे हैं, किसी के हेयर ले रहे हैं और यहाँ पे ब्लड का सैंपल उन साथ में ले रहे हैं। अभी एक इशू भी हुआ था, थोड़ा फैमिलीज थी तो उनके साथ भी वो सब लोग थोड़े घबराए हुए, फैमिलीज कोई भी हो।
कोई भी घबराया होगा सर, आप अच्छा काम कर रहे हैं।
मेरे पापा की क्या गलती थी जो इसमें बैठे थे? पैसे से आप नींद खरीद सकते हो, गोली मेरे सच्चे नींद कैसे आएगी? 1 करोड़ मैं यूं तो देती हूँ, मुझे पापा वापस नहीं है। एयर इंडिया वाले को बोलो 1 करोड़ मैं दूंगी, मेरा पापा मुझे वापस करो। अब किस सब से ही मेरे पापा गए हैं ना, आपको चेक करना था, पहले क्यों नहीं चेक किया? क्यों ऐसे हंसे के शिकार बनते हैं लोग? और ये 1 करोड़ में खरीदोगी मेरे पापा को? आप क्या मजाक बना के लगते हो? एयर इंडिया वाले कुछ सुनते नहीं है। एयर इंडिया वाले 1 करोड़ देंगे, 1 करोड़ देंगे, क्या 1 करोड़ देंगे? वो मैं आपको 2 करोड़ दूंगी, मेरे पापा मुझे वापस कीजिए। मेरी मदर भी वहाँ थी, मुझे तो वापस कीजिए। 2 करोड़ मैं दूंगी आपको, चैलेंज मारती हूँ मैं एयर इंडिया वाले को। क्या मजाक बना के लगते हो आप किसी भी जान को? कोई कहवा नहीं रहते, बोल रहे 1 करोड़ दूंगे, 3 करोड़ में दूंगी, मेरे पापा मुझे चाहिए। अब पैसों के क्या खरीद सकते हो आप? मेरे पापा को नहीं खरीद सकते ना। पैसों के आप सोने के लिए पढ़न खरीद सकते हो, नींद कैसे आएगी वो पढ़न में? पैसों का मोटर की सब कुछ खरीद सकते हो, मतलब सच्चा प्यार कहाँ मिलेगा जो मेरे पापा मुझे करते थे? कहाँ मिलेगा वो? 1 करोड़ में मिलेगा सच्चा प्यार? मजाक बना के लगते हैं एयर इंडिया वाले। बंद कर दो, नहीं होता तो आपको उन्हें किसी जान की भी कीमत न चुकानी पड़े किसी को। एयर इंडिया को खत्म कर दो, नहीं चाहिए। वो तो देश प्रेमी थे मेरे पापा, वो बोल के एयर इंडिया है हमारा देश है, हमारा प्रेम है, और बैठ गए। क्या मिला? देश प्रेम का क्या नहीं करना क्या मिला? क्या किया प्रेम? वो ऐसा प्रेम है इंडिया का।
आंटी क्या नाम है आपकी मम्मी का?
फाल्गुनी से बोल।
फाल्गुनी जी, मैं आपका ये मैसेज दूंगी।
उसको बोलो 2 करोड़ दूंगी, मुझे मेरा पापा चाहिए, और नहीं आए तो आपका पेन बंद कर दो। अभी चलाना भी मत, किसी भी जान के साथ खेला नहीं कर सकते आप लोग।
That's what heartbreak looks like. That's what heartbreak sounds like. Falguni, right there, has lost her father. She wants to give 2 crores. She wants to give 2 crores to Air India to get her father back. Her mother, her father, gone. She's given her DNA sample. She's waiting for a match to take the body home. Reporting with camera person Sanjay, Preeti Chaudhary at the Civil Hospital in Ahmedabad, Gujarat for India Today. Falguni Pathak sought my camera person Sanjay and I out at 1 a.m. last night. Those were the scenes playing out at the Civil Hospital, the DNA sampling center. It's become the face of the tragedy, and this tragedy cuts deep, viewers, for 165 families. Life as they knew it has changed forever. I went back this morning, back to the DNA center where they're recording, taking samples of DNA of loved ones, because families coming in from across the country, across the world. And what you saw were scenes of grief, of bereavement, more so anger, questions. And some of the families once again chose to speak to us, venting it out, venting their ire out. If there is a picture of abject heartbreak, this is where it is, because since there's been a steady stream of loved ones, families who are coming in, who heard the news for DNA sampling. And, you know, I can't begin to encapsulate on what we have seen. You know, God willed this on no one, because these are people who are coming in. These are people who are coming in not to identify loved ones, because they cannot identify loved ones, because the bodies have been charred beyond recognition. These are families who have come in to provide their DNA samples, so that in somewhat manner, because there can be a graceful funeral for their loved ones, because bodies can be identified. Late last night I was there, and I was speaking to a lot of people who have voluntarily come in to help. You know, I'm going to pull away from that, because the families are very, very upset. Some of them have just come in from Bharuch. मैम, आप कहाँ से आए हो मैम?
हम यहाँ जहांगीरपुरा रहते हैं और टिफिन सर्विस का मेरा भाई करता है।
आपके भाई का सैंपल देने आए हो?
मैं मेरी मम्मी के लिए आई हूँ। मेरी मम्मी कल से नहीं मिल रही है। कल से हम लोग मम्मी को ढूंढ रहे हैं, कुछ भी पता नहीं चल रहा है। हम लोग आज सैंपल देने आए, अभी आज वापस हमको 72 घंटे बोले हैं।
आपने सैंपल दिया?
दिया।
आपकी फैमिली कहाँ है मैम? किसके साथ आए हो आप?
मेरी फैमिली, मेरा भाई है और भाभी है। हम सब लोग सिविल में टिफिन सर्विस कवर खाने का सिविल में ही काम करते हैं, पर आज इतने सारे डॉक्टरों को हम कितने 14-15 साल से काम कर रहे हैं, सबको हम लोग खाने देते हैं, टिफिन देते टाइम टू टाइम। आज हमारा टाइम आया है कि मेरी मम्मी को ढूंढो बस। हमें इतनी साल आप लोगों के लिए इतना कुछ किया, अब हम लोग कुछ नहीं मारे, एक भीख मांग रहे हैं माँ के लिए, बस एक मेरी मम्मी और मेरी भतीजी दोनों मिल जाए।
आपका फैमिली? एक सेकंड। आपके साथ है कोई मैम? कहाँ है बताओ मुझे।
मेरी भाभी है वहाँ।
पानी you know, I'm gonna just pull away right now, because it's heartbreak, like I said. It's as heartbreaking because it's most of the relatives, some of them who have come in, because information is little. Though I have to say, and I will say this, that since yesterday, at least the local administration has set up centers, and they've been very, very good to try and dispense information. But as the loved ones are coming in, they really don't know, because already, they're grief-stricken, they're bereaved, they don't know who to speak with, and they're coming to the press to ask questions. I've just met this lady. She and her brother have come in and heartbroken. You can see right there, I'll ask my camera person Sanjay, family members being taken in to give their DNA samples right now, and heartbreaking visuals. You don't have the heart to, even speak with them. You have to give them the dignity. Late last night, there was a woman who came herself to me asking that if 1 crore is being given by Air India, she's willing to give 3 crores to get her father back, her papa back. These are the scenes right now, viewers, and it's a terrible, terrible morning, and I think it's these visuals, these images, I think India will forever remember, going through one of the worst aviation disasters. How many families have given their DNA samples yet?
Around 200 families have given their DNA sampling here, and that is for around 205 people. 205 people. Yes.
How many of you officers are here, sir?
Sorry, sir?
How many of you officers are here?
From the state government, 4 officers are here. 4 IAS officers have been deputed from the state government here.
Just to facilitate DNA sampling?
Yes, you can say that. The
men with the black cap, the khaki pants are all RSS workers, and this is a time actually to also viewers elucidate the stellar job that at least since yesterday afternoon that the RSS has been, the cadres of the RSS have been doing. The RSS very strong in Gujarat, and you could actually see them on ground, since the afternoon. They're trying to help loved ones, worried, in grief loved ones, trying to tell them what's the place to go, setting up small, counters for water, for food, or just information or a shoulder just to cry on. So, just to say that there. Because as any reporter, I would think one of the most difficult assignments is to document grief. And sadly, that is what we've been trying to do since the course of last night. Even more than the crash site, and I have to say this, even way more than the crash site, it is right here at the DNA sampling room that the magnanimity of this accident actually hits you. Right behind me, worried faces just come in. The family behind me has come in from the United Kingdom. They flew in this morning because this is the time, this morning when, after they got to know of the crash, flights have been coming in. Unslept, red eyes, some of them in disbelief, samples given, but and every face that you see, you see the face behind me of this lady. I'm not going to speak with her, but she had a chat with me early this morning. And there are sons, there are daughters, there are parents, there are little grandchildren for whom samples are being given. Just look at that. Every face that you see tells the story of trauma, of how life has changed in a blink of an eye. For these families, of what they knew life will not exist anymore. Breadwinners of the family gone, young grandchildren, gone. I don't even want to detail, just for dignity of the dead, the kind of horrific, eyewitness accounts that we've been hearing since yesterday, as in what fashion the bodies were wheeled in, some very, very little children. But this is what it, is. I'll ask my camera person to show you right there. That's another family in the white kurta, the lady there, right in front. That's another family that has just come in from the United Kingdom, looking for their brother. And over 200 bodies is what we've been told are unidentified. And this is another set of trauma for the loved ones, because not only have they lost their family, but now the agonizing wait for the last, for the next 3 days continues, because DNA sampling takes 3 days of time to actually, figure out in terms of the match. So that agonizing wait continues. There are, of course, officials coming in right now inside the DNA sampling room, some of them wanting to meet the loved ones who've gathered here. There is a fair amount of anger as well. There's a lot of disbelief, and there is a pall of grief that is completely enveloped this particular room. Sir, आप कहाँ से आए हैं?
गुजरात, आनंद।
आनंद से आए हैं। आप किसी को ढूंढने आए हैं?
मेरा फ्रेंड की बेटी है, 22 इयर्स। ये सुरेश मिस्त्री है।
मेरी लड़की थी, मेरी डॉटर थी।
आपकी डॉटर? सॉरी सर। आपने डीएनए सैंपल दिया?
दे दिया है, कल का दे दिया है।
72 आवर्स बोला है।
2 आवर्स बोला है?
72 आवर्स।
72 आवर्स।
यस, नेक्स्ट डे उसने बोला है कि आफ्टरनून शायद हो जाएगा। अभी हमने इंक्वायरी करके आया अंदर, लेकिन अभी तक कोई पुष्टि नहीं हुई है।
72 आवर्स कह रहे हैं कि 72 आवर्स के बाद सैंपल मिलेगा। आप उनकी बेटी यूके जा रही थी?
जा रही थी।
पढ़ाई के लिए?
नहीं, वो वर्क परमिट में थी।
वर्क परमिट में थी, काम के लिए वापस जा रही थी।
वो इसको ट्रीटमेंट करने का था, इधर तो ट्रीटमेंट करने आई थी 1 महीना के लिए, डेंटिस्ट के वहाँ।
डेंटिस्ट के लिए ट्रीटमेंट के लिए?
उसका जब जाने वाली थी ना अगले साल, तो उसका कार एक्सीडेंट हो गया था बहुत बड़ा, तो ये पूरा टूट गया था उसका। तो जाइडस में सर्जरी करवाया आनंद में, फिर उधर से अहमदाबाद का ऑर्थोडेंटिस्ट है CTM में, उसके पास उसका ट्रीटमेंट है, पर उसका पूरा बोन ही निकल गया था ऊपर से। तो डॉक्टर ने बोला बोन बनने में 6 से 10 महीना लगेगा। फिर हमने उधर एक्सरे करवाया लंदन में, तो एक्सरे में बोन दिखा है। डॉक्टर बोला कि अब तुम आ सकती हो। इसका 7 से 8 टीथ बोन इम्प्लांट किया 1 महीने में। इतनी स्ट्रॉन्ग थी वो, कोई भी एक साथ नहीं कर सकता इतना बोन। इतनी खुश थी वो ये करने को।
आप ये कल का ही फोटो है?
कल का ही मैं इधर हूँ, देखो 10 उसका मम्मी है।
ये उसका मम्मी है, ये आप है, और ये कल का ही आप छोड़ने आए थे?
वो छोड़ने आए थे, वही है कल का। कल देखो कितने बजे, यस्टरडे का ही है। देखो उसी ने ही सेल्फी लिया है हमारा, उसने भी सेल्फी लिया है। देखो टाइम कितना है, 11 बजे 3 मिनट का है। वो जा रही है, देखो।
आपने वीडियो लिया?
हाँ, वो जा रही थी। ऐसा पता भी नहीं था कैसा हो जाएगा। उसने भी स्टेटस भी ऐसा डाला था कि वो मिलेगी नहीं हमको।
आप किसके साथ हैं अंकल? आप इनके साथ?
वो मेरा बहनोई है।
आपके पास है कहीं जाने को अभी? मतलब आप लोग रुकेंगे यहीं पर अगले 3 दिन?
उसका देखो स्टेटस कल का, देखो फ्लाइट क्या लिखा है उसने।
उनका फ्लाइट, उनका
उसने क्या लिखा है, देखो उसने स्टेटस में।
Until next time, miss you all. क्या नाम था आपका बेटी?
किनल मिस्त्री।
मिश्रा।
किनल मिस्त्री।
Sir, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Sorry, sir. He's not changed his t-shirt. He showed me a picture. He's wearing the same t-shirt. He came to drop her. And he's back to give his DNA sample to identify her. 3 दिन में आपको पता चलेगा।
ऐसा बोल रहे हैं ये लोग, ऐसा बोल रहे हैं कि 72 कलाक
मदद आपको मिल रहा है यहाँ पर?
कोई मदद ऐसा बोल देता है, कौन पहचान, कोई रिप्लाई नहीं। अंदर जाते हो तो कोई 72 कलाक तो लगेगा ही लगेगा। हम आस लगाए बैठे कब उसका फोन आ जाए यार, बुला ले हमको। क्या सिचुएशन है?
मेरा अभी बात हुआ है अमित सर से, उन्होंने भी बोला है कि जब तक सीएम से उनका भी नहीं हो रहा है तो आपका भी कहाँ से होगा। बात किया मैंने।
रूपानी भी आए थे, हमने देखा भी वो एयरपोर्ट पे, वही फ्लाइट में रूपानी थे। वो लोग बिजनेस क्लास में होते हैं, मेरी लड़की अंदर ही वही फ्लाइट में थे। बोलो वो लोग भी, इसको पता था कैसा हो जाएगा।
आपकी वाइफ ठीक है? आपकी वाइफ?
वो तो अभी उसको लाते ही नहीं, इधर का वो देखती है मूवमेंट तो टूट जाती है। जो भी मिलने आते हैं रोती है। इसलिए उसको होटल पे छोड़ दिया कि तू इधर ही रुक, हम लोग आते हैं। हम चेक करके आते हैं, ऐसा करके निकल गए। क्या समाचार है उधर देख लेते हैं।
सर आपका नाम?
सुरेश मिस्त्री।
सुरेश मिस्त्री। और आपकी बेटी का नाम? केतल मिस्त्री। कीनल मिस्त्री। सर I'm sorry, अब हम क्या बोले आप? I'm sorry. I am really sorry. That's what I said. He's not changed. He came in. He saw Mr. Rupani go in. He showed me her Instagram post, his daughter's Instagram post, and it says, "Till I see you again, miss you." He showed me the selfie he took with her, he and his wife, when they dropped her. They've come in from Anand. He's wearing the same t-shirt, the same red and blue t-shirt. He's come back today, and that picture he showed me, because he's going on referring to it, he's going on looking at it, and he's saying it was at the same time yesterday, so exactly an hour ago. And he showed me that picture, and he's now come back to give his DNA sample to match with his 22-year-old daughter. That is the expanse of this tragedy, viewers, and it's not one. It is not one. There are 265 stories exactly like the one playing out behind me. That is the expanse of this heartbreak.
H60 Pro, the edge of excellence.
Dangerously cool. Go, stop, go. Playing this game like a tic-tac-toe. Sharp as a razor, the flavor bowl. Flip it out, they wanna fold. Keeping them coming.
Motorola Razr 60, dangerously cool.
Hello, Moto.
Motorola Razr 60, dangerously cool.
Hi, here are the top headlines presented by Motorola. PM Modi meets the survivor of plane crash. Emergency landing of Air India flight in Thailand. Khamenei says Israel will face severe punishment.
Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices. Amplify your brand with 100 million smart internet viewers. To advertise, mail us at sales@aajtak.com.
Yogi Adityanath faces huge challenges even here in Uttar Pradesh. What's the biggest win as far as India is concerned for a section that's completely silent on the atrocities that Hindus are suffering in Bangladesh? Look at how it's happening in style. Crores of devotees, that is the Divya Bhavya Ram temple where the Pran Pratishtha will take place. A shivling-like structure that has been found in the Gyanvapi premises. India Today special broadcast that comes to you from the holy Kedarnath shrine.
Gaurav Sawant, India First, 8 p.m. on India Today Television.
यहीं मेरे ऑफिस में बैठी थी, जैसा धड़ाका हुआ मैं वहाँ ऑफिस से वहाँ गई। बहुत बड़ा प्लेन क्रैश हुआ था, तो बहुत धुआं और आग लगी थी। जो डॉक्टर्स के फ्लैट थे उनको बहुत डैमेज हुए हैं और उसमें से कितने डॉक्टरों को हमने निकाला है, लोकल कार्यकर्ता और सब मिलके बाद में जो प्लेन में से निकाले हैं वो लोग भी बहुत
बड़ी दुखद दुर्घटना।
बहुत
कितने
बहुत
लोगों की मौत कुछ
अभी कोई अंदाजा नहीं लग रहा है।
ये ऐसी खबरें चल रही है रूपानी साहब पे ऐसा कुछ
नहीं अभी ऐसा कुछ पता नहीं है कि क्या है।
यहाँ पे जो ऑफिस से बाहर निकला तो मैंने देखा कि आवाज जोर से आवाज आया विंग्स का, फिर पूरा धुआं भर गया, लोग यहाँ से भगदड़ मची। उसके बाद आके देख रहे थे ये हादसा की स्थिति।
अच्छा, तो आप यहाँ पर पहले आए तो आपने क्या देखा?
आने के बाद देखा कि पूरा मलबा बिखरा हुआ, आग लगी है, पूरा धुआं गुब्बारा है, कुछ भी दिखाई नहीं दे रहा, समझ में नहीं आ पा रहा था क्या है। उसके बाद पता चला कि ये विंग्स गिरा हुआ है, फ्लाइट वो किया, फिर प्रशासन ने चारों तरफ से घेर लिया।
Weather forecast now. Delhi, maximum 46 and minimum 32 degrees. Mumbai, maximum 30 and minimum 25 degrees. Kolkata, maximum 37 and minimum 27 degrees. Bangalore, maximum 30 and minimum 20 degrees. Chennai, maximum 35 and minimum 26 degrees. Hyderabad, maximum 32 and minimum 24 degrees.
Co-presented by Century Ply Club Prime, रहो बेफिक्र. Co-presented by Hint, बड़े आराम से. Powered by NECC, Sunday हो या Monday, रोज खाओ अंडे. Co-powered by The Carnes Clavis, made for epic journeys. No stress Phenolix.
Good evening. Big story coming in. The black box of the Air India Boeing 787-8, the AI-171 Ahmedabad to Gatwick, London flight that crashed seconds after takeoff. That black box has just been recovered. The recovery of the cockpit voice recorder and the flight data recorder from the tail section of the aircraft, relatively intact as you saw in those images. That's expected to reveal the causes of the crash. The flight data recorder or the cockpit voice recorder has the last 25 hours of that aircraft recorded, because after that it gets deleted on the next flight. It's once again, it's the new data that's fed in. But how long does that entire process take to decode what's on that black box? For families, it's endless pain. There's disbelief, but there is that desire to know the truth. And that's our top focus story on India First.
Big breakthrough 24 hours after crash. Black box of ill-fated flight recovered. Black box to reveal crucial details. What led to the fatal plunge? What caused the crash? Big focus on India First.
Information we can share with our viewers. There are teams from Boeing Seattle and both in the US and teams from the United Kingdom that are coming into India. They will assist in the investigations. The aim is to know the truth. But the big question remains, how long does that process take? What are lessons to be learned? The fact is that this Air India Dreamliner was actually the workhorse of Air India, flying long haul almost non-stop. On India Today, we get you a 360-degree perspective on that big developing story. Also on India First, Israel bombs Iran, and how wave after wave of airstrikes, missile strikes that have taken place, drone strikes, including some drones that were made and launched from inside Iran, taking down not just their very crucial surface-to-air missile launchers, missiles, even their depots and production centers. More than 20 top Iranian military commanders, including the chief of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps and their army chief, have been killed. West Asia is in turmoil, and Israel's ambassador to India, Reuven Azar, he joins me at 8:30 tonight on India First. I'm Gaurav Sawant. As always, let's get started with the headlines at 8. Big breakthrough in Air India plane crash probe. The black box has been recovered. Civil Aviation body orders safety audit of the entire Air India Boeing 787 fleet. Prime Minister Narendra Modi visits Ahmedabad, takes stock of the crash site along with Air India's CEO, also meets the injured at the hospital. No closure, no dead bodies. Shattered families queue up for DNA tests to identify what remains of their loved ones. 265 confirmed dead in the crash, 241 in the aircraft, the rest on ground. The lone survivor of Air India Flight 171, Vishwas Kumar, speaks out, says he survived as the seat broke and he fell out of the aircraft.
थोड़ा टाइम लेके तो मेरे को लगा था कि मैं भी मरने वाला हूँ, लेकिन जब मेरी आँख खुल के मैं देखा ना तो मुझे लगा मैं जिंदा हूँ. तो मैंने ट्राई किया, जब मेरी सीट थे वो मेरी बेल्ट निकाला, मैंने वो ट्राई किया जहाँ से निकल सकता वहाँ से, तो मैं निकल गया वहाँ से.
Israel's Operation Rising Lion bombs Iranian nuclear sites. Tehran pledges retaliation. Donald Trump issues a chilling warning, tells Iran there is more to come if Iran does not sign the deal. The flight data recorder and the cockpit voice recorder, the black box of Air India flight AI-171, has been recovered. Aviation experts say air crash investigations can take at times months, at times even years, to reveal the exact
cause or a combination of factors, combination of causes that may have led to the crash. The black box with this exhaustive flight data, operations data. Now, this black box is expected to shed light on all the vital parameters and conversations inside the cockpit. Our Aviation Bureau brings you our top story.
Over 24 hours later, it is still not known what caused Air India Flight 171 to crash. In a big breakthrough, the black box of the plane has been recovered. Ministry of Civil Aviation sources tell India Today that the black box was found on the rooftop of the building that the flight hit as it crashed. The emergency locator transmitter has also been found. ELT is a safety device that is installed in the aircraft to send out distress signals to help locate the aircraft in case of an emergency. Teams from India's Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau, US and UK experts are also on ground looking for clues and evidence. The video of the moment of crash shows how the Boeing 787 Dreamliner's wheels retracted briefly before the pilot pushed them back down, likely sensing a sudden loss of thrust just seconds after the takeoff.
Right now, all the engines were operating normally.
Yes.
Now we can see one engine has failed.
Yes.
And simultaneously, you can see the second engine has failed. Although you can see I'm pitching all the way back up, but my aircraft is sinking and it is just.
So this is exactly what would have happened. Both the engines have failed, and you see the aircraft going down, crashing. You see the buildings, and this is exactly what happened. That's what we understand from the initial reports.
Investigators and forensic teams will now be piecing together the final moments of Air India Flight 171 through key evidence, including the black box that will help reconstruct the flight path and uncover what went wrong during takeoff. Analysis of the wreckage will also be done to determine the sequences of events and identify any mechanical failures. Maintenance logs review will reveal if there were any issues with the Boeing plane or missed repairs in the past. Prime Minister Modi visited the crash site, spending close to half an hour there. The Prime Minister also met Air India's CEO, Capable Wilson, at the spot. He later met the injured, the lone survivor of the Air India flight, and former Gujarat CM Vijay Rupani's family. There are more questions than answers surrounding the Ahmedabad plane crash. All eyes are now on the black box and what it will reveal. With Amit Bharadwaj in Ahmedabad, Bureau Report, India Today.
So what exactly is the black box, and why is it so important that the black box be recovered? And since it's been recovered, what is it likely to reveal? Well, the black box, or the flight data recorder, holds all the information about a plane. It can withstand an explosion, it can withstand fire, water pressure, air crash. There's also the cockpit voice recorder, and that records radio transmissions or any conversation that takes place between the pilot and the co-pilot, and every check is done. It's audible. So the pilot says something, the co-pilot audibly says check. Then it records the conversation between the pilot and the air crew, the conversation that the pilot may have with passengers on board. Everything is recorded. Records all conversations and even the engine noise. Flight data recorder records up to 1,000 plus flight parameters. It tracks altitude, airspeed, flight headings, the pitch and the roll of the aircraft, the status of the autopilot. All of that information is likely to be revealed here. Now, there are several pilots and aviation experts and enthusiasts across the world who are looking at images of that final takeoff, and then the aircraft sinking and then mushing to ground. Seconds later, they're trying to piece together what could have happened. The Boeing 787-8 is considered among the safest aircraft in the world. In fact, This is the first ever hull crash of the Dreamliner that started flying way back in 2009. Captain Steve is a US-based Boeing 777 pilot, and he analyzes what may have gone wrong. And he's put forward 3 broad theories. He, of course, does concede that this is just on the basis of information he can glean from that 1-minute-long footage. The flight data recorder will reveal the truth.
Take a look at what we see, and I'm going to stop it here as the airplane comes into the frame. The airplane looks to be kind of normal, but what we do know is this: the landing gear is still down. Now, this airplane is well beyond the point of rotation and climb out where they would have raised the gear. That's done at about 50 feet off the ground. And so more on that in a minute. What we also see is both engines, we don't know if they're producing thrust, but what we don't see out of the engines is any sort of flame, any sort of sparks. We don't see any indication that they're not operating normally. Now, everybody's been talking about a power loss. I've watched a bunch of videos and people on the different channels talking about this. And they say, well, it was a power loss, and that's why the airplane descended and crashed. Let me be specific with this. This was a loss of lift. It could have been caused by a power loss. So that's theory number 1, is that they lost power on both engines. That caused the loss of lift. The airplane stopped flying. It started flying at one point. It was flying normally as the nose lifted off. Before they raised the gear, the airplane lost lift and stopped flying. So what would have caused that? Well, if both engines failed, it was just one of 2 things. Either they ran through a flock of birds and basically destroyed both engines at once. The reason I don't think that's a likely theory is we don't see any birds in the picture. It would have had to be a lot of birds to foul out both engines, and we don't see any indications coming out of the back of the engine that happened. You'd see flames, you'd see sparks, you'd see something as those engines were kind of coming apart. It's smoke at a minimum, so you don't see any of that stuff. It looks as though the engines are intact and they're running. They could have both flamed out because of fuel contamination. That's the one thing that both engines would have in common, is the fuel. The problem with that theory, at least in my opinion, is that as they pushed up the power to go down the runway, they would have had the indications of a sputtering engine if the fuel had been contaminated. There's no indication that they did. They roll down the runway, and I'll show you that video in a minute. They rotate at the normal speed. They take a nose-up attitude, which is really normal for that airplane at that speed. Everything else happens after that. So I don't think they lost power on the engines. Now, we could find out in a day or 2. That's exactly what happened, and that's what caused the loss of lift. But that's theory number 1. Theory number 2 is that they took off without the flaps out. They took up with flaps up. The problem with that, and it would be indicative of the way the airplane kind of wallowed into the air and then came back down. The problem with that theory is this: they would have had to get through 2 complete checklists and not put the flaps down, because 2 checklists on that airplane, and they're electronic checklists. They're integral to the airplane. It's not like a paper checklist that you hold. So the airplane literally will not let you taxi out and take off without the flaps deployed properly for that weight and that airport that you're at. All that stuff is determined ahead of time. So they would have had to manually override both of those checklists, then for some unexplained reason take the runway. And once you put your power up in a 787, just like my 777, once you put the power up, the airplane knows you intend to go flying. If you're not configured for flight, in other words, your flaps are not deployed, it makes a racket. A big red light comes up and says config warning, and then both master caution lights in front of both pilots flash, and then a horn goes off, and it's deafening. It's inconceivable that they would have continued on with that takeoff roll with a configuration warning in front of them just to rotate and then flounder into the community off the end of the runway. So is it possible that that was what happened? It is possible. Same as with the power loss. Anything is possible here. We don't have all the details. The airplane has plenty of lift over the wings, has plenty of thrust going on, and now those big landing gear, the drag devices now have been brought up into the airplane, and man, it takes off like a rocket. That part never happens. Right here, as we're looking at this airplane, the gear should be coming up into the airplane. It never does. Let me play it a little bit longer, and then I'm going to tell you why I think it didn't. Right there is the point where the pilot fly would normally bring the airplane up to about 12 degrees nose up. The gear should be almost completely up into the airplane at this point. It hasn't budged an inch. You're going to see on a 787, the ends of the wings start to bend a little bit. They usually bend a lot more than this airplane. Why? Because as the airplane's picking up speed and it's picking up lift over those wings, those composite wings really bend. That is an indication, a visual indication, they're really getting a lot of lift. This 787 is not getting a lot of lift right now, but nothing's going on with the engines as far as I can see. Now, let me continue with this. At this point, watch the nose. It starts to go over right there. It starts to come back over. Why is it doing that? Here's what I think happened. And again, folks, this is just my opinion. This is a theory, that one theory among many. Any of the others I could have shared with you up to this point could be absolutely right. But why do I think this one is more likely than the other two? Here's why. I think the pilot flying said to the co-pilot, gear up at the appropriate time. I think the co-pilot grabbed the flap handle and raised the flaps instead of the gear. If that happened, and this is a big if that happened, this explains a lot of why this airplane stopped flying, why the lift over the wings died. Because at that point now, the flaps are retracting, all that extra lift you're producing in the wings goes away. You're already slow, you already got the power pushed up all the way. This airplane's as heavy as it's ever gonna be in this flight, and you still got those great big landing gear out there producing all sorts of drag. This is a bad combination at this point. You see the nose now start to come over. Now, why would the nose come over? Because the airplane is trying to create as much lift as it can over those wings. And if the flaps are coming up, it's going to nose over to get even more airflow over those wings. That's going to be a very, very uncomfortable feeling for the pilot at the controls. Why? Because he's losing airspeed and he's going to begin to lose altitude now. Remember, he thinks the gear has come up. He might not know that the flaps came up. He just sees a motion over next to him, and he's looking outside going, wait, what's going on? It's all very confusing, and it all happens in a split second. Let's watch. The airplane starts to settle in. It starts to now descend. You see the pilot start to pull the nose up a little bit more, okay? As he's getting closer to the ground, he's probably got the power pushed up all he can, and now I think he's going to get into a power on stall. Not enough lift is being produced by those wings. All that drag is being produced by the landing gear that's still out there. Could anything have saved the day at this point? Maybe if they'd raised the gear. Maybe if they'd raised the gear and put the flaps back out, but it's very unlikely that once this gets to this point that they can recover from it. And now watch what happens. The airplane begins to kind of wallow, right? The pilot pulls back even more on the nose. That aggravates the whole thing. And now you get this waddle into the ground, and it's in a controlled power on stall until it impacts the ground. And it's just sad. It's been a very bitter time in aviation, and we see now the loss for the first time of a 787. I hope in the long run that that's the last 787 crash we ever have to witness, whether it was over in India or here in the US or over in the UK, anywhere around the world. We don't want to have to do commentary on any of these such accidents. Now, in the days to come, as we get the black box information, I've heard that the NTSB is going over to India to help. I've heard Boeing is headed over there to help. We're going to hopefully get information sooner rather than later from those sources. And as we do, we will bring you additional information, amplifying information. And if I need to make a correction, I'll be the first guy to make a correction.
Now, this Air India Dreamliner was truly a workhorse. Recent flight history of VT A and B shows the aircraft was flying Delhi, Paris, Delhi, Delhi, Tokyo, Delhi, Delhi, Melbourne, Delhi, Delhi, Paris, Delhi again, Delhi, Frankfurt, Delhi, virtually every day from June 6 to June 11. And even on June 12, Delhi, Ahmedabad, it had already done that leg, and then it crashed as it took off for London, Gatwick. What does the black box recovery mean, and how soon will we know the truth? Joining me on India First is Jitendra Bhargav, former Executive Director, Air India, and author of The Descent of Air India. Mirza Faizan is an aerospace scientist and inventor of ground reality information processing systems, somebody who was associated with the 787 Dreamliner, and squad leader Debolina Das is a commercial pilot and aviation specialist joining us on the broadcast. Mr. Bhargav, welcome. Now that the black box has been recovered, how long in your appreciation before the truth emerges, sir?
Look, it's been more than 24 hours since the accident took place, the horrific accident. While on one side, there are people, the DNAs of the people who perished, etc., being conducted to get on. On the other side, the people's expectations of an early investigation to begin and conclusion drawn what happened. While any number of people who are experienced in the airline industry can speculate, comment, and say this is probably what has happened. But what gives the seal of finality as to this is what exactly happened is the black box. Because anything to do with the aircraft, whether it is the speed at which it's going, at the altitude that it has, or, for example, the conversation that is taking place between the commander and the co-pilot, everything gets recorded. And when this is decoded, you get the first set of clues that this was possibly the reason why it happened. It may be probable, one can say that the captain did blurt out in the cockpit when he was trying to ensure that we can climb further, the nose is up, that he's hit something and that this is what had happened. And we'll have to wait for it rather than speculate, get onto the black box, investigate. Yes. In my opinion, since the Boeing team has to be here, the regulatory agencies is here, airline people are here, and you decode the whole thing and come out with it. And then comes the data analysis on what's happened, what your analysis. It could be anything from 3 days to 10 days to look at it, to get on with it. The only part that I can say is that one thing that I did not experience, and fortunately so during my tenure of 20 days, 20 years in Air India, was that we didn't have a situation of this kind. So I may not be 100% accurate with my observation as to how much time it takes, but my experience shows that yes, it could be 3 to 10 days to come to a conclusion and said these were the factors.
Mirza Faizan, we're told data from the black box is put on a simulator and then an assessment made on what may have happened, what perhaps went wrong. Does it take 3 to 10 days, weeks, months, or could it be years in your appreciation for truth to emerge? And does truth finally emerge?
Oh yes, truth will finally come out. I mean, this is, to me, this looks like a really, open and shut kind of investigation, right? Because we do not only will have access to the black box data, we have footage of the aircraft getting crashed. I mean, where do you get a footage of aircraft last final moments of the video getting crashed? And that's a really good piece of evidence for the investigator as well. So what we do is when we, there are two types of data from the black box, the CDR and the CVR, cockpit voice recorder, and the FDR, which is the flight data recorder. So cockpit voice recorder, we will immediately know what was going on. It actually records not only the communication between two pilots or the pilots and the ATC, it also records if there's any buzzer, any master alarm, anything which is coming up. So investigator will know what is the exact state of cockpit at that point of time. FDR, we bring that data up. Not all data could be put on simulator to make sense, right? Yes, the aircraft orientation, the pitch, roll, and all that stuff can be put on, the engine parameter can be put on to see. But for example, at which point of time, let's say, just for the sake of explaining, there was some issue with the fuel pump. Yes. So that data is being recorded. But that's an internal issue with the aircraft, which might not be available up there. So we do not have any way to put that data on on a simulator. So there will be data which will be put on the simulator, and at the same time there will be an internal analysis of the data millisecond by millisecond, like what is happening with the visible parameter versus what is happening in the invisible systems, which is going on parallelly. And that's how the whole story is built.
Okay, you mentioned the fuel pumps. There are some who argue that could it be that both the engines were starved of fuel? Could it be contaminated fuel? I'll come to that aspect in just a moment. But Squad Leader Devolina Das, black box data, can it be faulted or will truth emerge? Or do questions still remain even after FDR and CVR, cockpit voice recorder and flight data recorder information is known?
So, as per my knowledge, if it is it's an evident problem with either the engines or the configuration of the aircraft or the fuel, which has caused the engine to starve. So, anything to do with these will be definitely recorded in the FDR and the CVR. And if these are the reasons, then definitely the answer will be out in 10 to 15 days. But sometimes, everything being okay, there might be a mix of all the reasons which could have caused the accident. In that case, we have to start eliminating what couldn't have happened to come to what is the final reason for the accident, which generally takes a lot of time, and then speculations start building and pressures start building, and then we have a lot of players involved to give out the result. So now, if we are not sure that what is the exact cause, if it is a configuration, engine stall, compressor stall, or the fuel pumps being clogged, if those are the 4 things that's happening, then the result will be out in a very short period, within 2 weeks or maximum a month. But if it is a combination of everything where we cannot pinpoint what it is, then the real Herculean task starts.
Okay. Mirza Faizan, what kind of data do we expect in this black box, and will that conclusively point to the cause, or, as Squad Leader Devulina said, combination of causes that may have led to the crash? Just in case we talk about the fuel pumps being clogged, will that be recorded in the flight data recorder or the cockpit voice recorder in case the engines were starved of fuel?
So first of all, I agree with Squad Leader Devulina that different parameters are taken into account to develop or construct a story and a hypothesis, and then you either make it true or you prove it false, right? So that's how it is done. See, data do not tell a story. They are just digital numbers, right? So when fuel pump is clogged, it will not say the fuel pump is clogged. It will just tell that the flow is less than the normal flow. For example, if the flow is supposed to be 150 gallon per second, I'm giving a hypothetical number, and the data records, the sensor records 90 gallon per second, that is where the investigator will have a clue to use in the story or hypothesis they build, right? So data will not tell the reason. Data will just tell what was happening. It is for the investigators and different parties to now develop a hypothesis, and you falsify it or you verify it to come to a conclusive evidence what would have happened in the aircraft.
Mr. Bhargav, the DGCA has ordered enhanced safety inspections of all Boeing 787-8 and 9s when the aircraft is flying virtually non-stop, like we saw from the flight data information on the flight radar. Do maintenance schedules take a hit, sir?
Gaurav, it's a good decision, because after yesterday's tragic accident, the public confidence in the aircraft would have suffered for sure. Now, how do you try and boost confidence of the traveling public who are going to be flying on a Dreamliner, suddenly recalling, well, 2 days, 1 day ago, this is what happened to the aircraft and the passengers on board, since people have seen it on television visually number of times on what happened. So once you say that you have a series of additional checks introduced, it does send a positive message to the traveling public. So I am very happy that DGCA has been proactive and given this direction to Air India, and perhaps it should also give it to Indigo, which has 2 Dreamliners already flying, that this is what needs to be done. Very good decision, which is very rare, and I must share with you. So the moment people see it at the airport, additional checks being conducted, in public domain, the information is put, people will feel very, very satisfied and said, look, they are taking requisite action to ensure that what happened on Thursday does not recur.
Oh, absolutely. Because Squad Leader Das, the commander of the aircraft, he had 8,200 hours of flying experience. The co-pilot, we're told, had over 1,100 hours of flying experience. Is there any merit in some aviation enthusiasts and experts and some pilots groups? There's conversation that the pilots are no longer here to defend themselves. They may ultimately be blamed for the crash.
God forbid that happens. We would not want that, especially the pilot community. But as far as my understanding goes, with so much humongous hours of flying, it is really very difficult for a captain and a co-pilot to be the reason for a crash at this altitude just after a takeoff. Like I was seeing the NDTV review of Captain Steve and his third theory, and I somewhere felt that the aircraft might have a lot of checks and lot of cautions and lot of warnings coming up if there is a configuration problem, but so does the brain of a human. I mean, if a flap is taken up instead of a landing gear and the aircraft is going down, a captain with so much experience will not just try to pull up the nose, but will look into the aircraft to see what is the reason why my aircraft is going down. So it's very difficult, obviously, to pinpoint now that what will come out as the reason. But as we all know that the souls are not there. But if it is so unfortunate that they'll be pulled out, it will be a very black mark on the aviation industry. But
no, since you mentioned, there are these warnings. Mirza Faizan, the Dreamliner I was reading has multiple warning systems. The engine indicating and crew alerting system that monitors hundreds of sensors, the TCAS traffic collision avoidance system, the stall warning system, the tail strike protection system. If any parameter was not being met, that red light that would flash, the alarm that would go off, clearly, is it possible, as some aviation experts argue, that the landing gear was down and the flap was up? Would the aircraft permit that to happen?
I do not agree with that analysis. Pilots with that kind of experience making a mistake, and it's not that the flaps and the landing gear systems are just levers are just next to each other, and the pilot is a newbie who just does that. I normally, and also the sound of landing gear coming up versus the flaps get rolling up is entirely different. And when every time I fly, I can find out with the sound, I can find out what's going in the aircraft, right? Which state the aircraft is in. Now, these pilots with immense, flying hours under their belt, I don't think that could have happened. And I totally agree with Squad Leader Debolina. And it's in any investigation, it's easiest to blame the dead man who's not there to defend himself, right? But if that is done, right? If anyone tries to do that. In fact, when I was looking at this, the video, the clips which we have, what I see is that till the last moment, both the pilots have displayed remarkable airmanship, right? They have kept the bird in control, right? And he must be, like, it was just 15 to 20 seconds, and there was a lot of things happening. I can say the only human error, if you want to put it that way, was that he has too little time to manage too many things, which he could not do it. That is the only thing I can say.
Okay, what do you make of all this speculation of loss of lift and the causes due to loss of thrust? The conversation that it took off flaps up and landing gear down. You heard that. I mean, a lot of pilots have been talking about it and wondering why was this happening.
Yeah, Gaurav, but I've been reluctant to put it in public domain or speculate that this could possibly be the reason for it. There are pilots who have made statements as attributing some cause or the other, but I would rather wait for the investigation to come out and say it's a question of waiting for a few days. The black box will determine and come out with a conclusive evidence as to what really happened about it. But rather than look at it and say, well, I did look at the trajectory of the aircraft flying, having reached 675 feet above, and then you find the nose coming down, and what could possibly have gone was here, and no time being available to the pilot, though pilots are trained for all virtual kind of situations that he may have while flying. But then perhaps because the time was simply just not available with him, he had no choice or he had no control on it, the aircraft, and it crash landed. You see, when we look at it and say very often that when you have the engines off, are you gliding? But here the altitude was also very limited, and you had a building in front of it. So where was the time available here? So all that we talk of training pilots for all situations, well, I think in this situation, a very challenging task because the altitude was low, obstacles en route, and there was nothing that he could do. So let's wait for the black box to give us the wealth of information or data that it has in it, and then we come to a conclusion. This was probably the cause of the accident and the death of 265 people.
Yeah, both in the aircraft and on ground. Squad Leader Das, this speculation around could both engines be starved of fuel? Can fuel contamination be an issue? And is there no redundancy to deal with fuel contamination or pipes being clogged in such a scenario?
It's a very far-fetched speculation because when the engines are open for a takeoff and the aircraft is rolling on the landing roll, any kind of issue that the engine might face or the configuration might face gives out tremendous amount of warnings in the cockpit. If the fuel is not reaching the engine, if there is a drop in the pressure of the fuel, if the engine pumps are clogged, the fuel pumps are clogged, anything going wrong which might be a cause of a disaster after takeoff will have a lot of cautions and warning as soon as you open the power of the aircraft to take off. So the fuels being clogged and the pilots taking off with that is a very low possibility which I can think of. The only thing which comes to my mind is that after takeoff, if there could be a cause for a compressor stall or an engine stall, even then both the engines have to stall or both the engines have to be hit by a lot of birds is the only thing that can cause the aircraft to lose the power and stall and go down the ground. Otherwise, any fuel clog, anything like that will have its caution and warning as soon as we take off. And this happens
and
just
then are there
30 seconds after
redundancies?
takeoff.
Fuel goes from multiple channels in these aircraft. Mirza Faizan, too soon to speculate on either fuel contamination or, as some argue, there could have been electrical failure. There are conspiracy theorists who are talking of suspected or possible sabotage. Is that even possible?
As far as possibility of sabotage is concerned, I don't think that this is a sabotage. But there is one other approach or angle which I think investigator will focus, or they might focus the investigation on. This is a complete fly-by-wire aircraft. Now try to understand what is fly-by-wire. The pilot gives instruction to the computer, and computer actuates whatever the system has to do. It's not mechanical movement kind of stuff. The throttle of 787 is also fly-by-wire. Now, if there is an issue in the system which is controlling the fly-by-wire, the computer system, the electrical system of the fly-by-wire system, so the instructions sent by pilot to give full throttle to the engine might not be actuated by the engine because it is not reaching. That could be one more angle, investigator could look at, right? Apart from fuel and other angles.
Okay, but in that case, is there no manual override in case the system's not listening to you? Is there a manual override?
Not for throttle, not for throttle, right? For ailerons, for the control systems, there is a manual override, but not for throttle. Throttle is completely fly-by-wire.
Excuse me. Is sabotage even possible? There are many systems, or are there systems, you've been in this industry for over 20 years with Air India. Are there people who keep an eye on each other to ensure there's no sabotage, or is that possible?
There is a very robust system at the airport, considering that this aircraft had flown from Delhi to Ahmedabad. Nothing happened, nothing untoward had happened. Now, at Ahmedabad airport, naturally, refueling would have been done, technical inspection would have been done by the engineer, and there are people always present. Now, if you look at this kind of a remote chance that, yes, probably somebody played mischief and it got overlooked, which is a feasibility. Considering that Ahmedabad airport at that particular time was not having too many aircraft around, etc., that you could probably be caught doing something of this kind. But if somebody has done, he's done it mischievously and smartly, not to have been detected. But then, as I said earlier, the flyby aircraft, with everything computer controlled, did the pilot get any kind of a lighting indication, etc., that something was wrong? And as one of the panelists very rightly said, with the commander having 8,000 plus hours of flying, a mistake of this kind was improbable. But then, if you rule out every kind of a thing, the pilot was experienced, the aircraft has a good track record, the visibility factor was very good. The reality is the accident did take place.
It indeed
Now,
did,
what
and
was
perhaps
it?
it's that, yes, the cockpit voice
That is
recorder
where
and the flight data recorder.
the black box become important, the information, and the faster one can get onto it and get this thing, because the data that you get, and Boeing will have a wealth of information, etc., juxtapose a particular situation or a kind of a previous accident, not involving this accident aircraft, but anything else, and you will probably get some conclusions very clearly and very early.
We'll track that story very closely. I will let that be the last word on this part of the show. Mr. Jitendra Bhargav, squad leader Deb, and Faizan for joining me here on India Today. As always, many thanks. A quick break. On the other side, I will tell you about Operation Rising Lion, the manner in which Israel went and struck Iran not once, not twice, but wave after wave, missiles, aircraft, more than 200 fighter jets, and they were refueling on top. That's the kind of air supremacy, not superiority. That's the kind of air supremacy Israel had. Israel's ambassador to India, Reuven Azar, joins me on the other side of a quick break. Stay with us.
Association with Century Fly Club Prime. Raho befikar.
Motorola Edge 60 Pro, the edge of excellence.
पैसा लगाना है तो सेंचुरी प्लाई क्लब प्राइम पे लगाओ। डूबेगा नहीं, जलेगा भी नहीं, कोई खा नहीं जाएगा, धोखा नहीं देगा, ऊपर नीचे भी नहीं होगा, सेफ रहेगा, सिक्योर्ड में मिनिमम 30 साल का रिटर्न देगा। अब इससे बेटर इन्वेस्टमेंट है तो बताओ। सेंचुरी प्लाई क्लब प्राइम, रहो बेफिक्र।
Dangerously cool. Go, stop, go. Playing this game like a tic-tac-toe. Sharp as a razor, the flavor bowl. Flip it out, they wanna fold. Keeping them coming.
Motorola Razr 60, dangerously cool.
Hello, Moto.
Welcome back. There's been massive escalation in West Asia. Israel early this morning targeted multiple sites across Iran. Nuclear sites, missile strikes, drone strikes, manufacturing sites, military leadership, command and control structure, all of that targeted, preemptive, powerful strikes. And this targeted attack seems to have eliminated the entire top leadership, military leadership of Iran. From the army chief to the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps chief, 20 commanders have been neutralized. Tehran has pledged to hit back and retaliate. 100 drones were sent, but then each one was intercepted. Is that the worst that Iran can do? Or does it have a couple of aces up its sleeve? US President Donald Trump has sent out a chilling warning to Iran, asking Iran or telling Iran, you either strike a deal or prepare for even more brutal strikes in the days ahead.
Operation Rising Lion, Israel's all-out military offensive against Iran. A preemptive strike that has sent ripples across the globe. Over 100 strategic locations across Iran reduced to rubble in just a matter of minutes. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu has claimed that the IDF has destroyed Iran's military and nuclear infrastructure in order to neutralize its nuclear threat. Confirmed to have died in the strike are Chief of Staff of the Iranian Armed Forces, Major General Mohammad Bagheri, Commander of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, Major General Hossein Salami, and Deputy Commander of Iranian Armed Forces, Major General Gholam Ali Rashid. Senior nuclear scientists Mehdi Tehranshi and Feridun Abbasi were also killed in the strikes.
Moments ago, Israel launched Operation Rising Lion, a targeted military operation to roll back the Iranian threat to Israel's very survival. This operation will continue for as many days as it takes to remove this threat. For decades, the tyrants of Tehran have brazenly, openly called for Israel's destruction. They've backed up their genocidal rhetoric with a program to develop nuclear weapons.
A wounded Iran has warned of a belligerent response. Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has reminded Israel that it must prepare for a bitter, painful fate. With the world wary of a nuclear flashpoint, the International Atomic Body confirmed that there has been no elevated radiation levels at the Natanz facility after the heart of Iran's nuclear facility was struck by Israel.
The competent Iranian authorities have confirmed that the Natanz enrichment site has been impacted and that there are no elevated radiation levels. This development is deeply concerning. I have repeatedly stated that nuclear facilities must never be attacked, regardless of the context or circumstances.
But with the tensions in the Middle East at an all-time high, an uneasy world can only hope for a de-escalation at the earliest. Bureau Report, India Today.
Joining me on this special broadcast is Israel's ambassador to India, Ambassador Reuven Azar. Ambassador, welcome on India Today. What was the need to mount this Operation Rising Lion right now, sir? What was the specific threat, the specific intelligence input that Israel has to justify being claimed that this was an existential threat to Israel?
Thank you, Gaurav, for this interview. First of all, I would like to extend to you, to the entire Indian nation, our condolences for the terrible plane crash yesterday that claimed so many lives. Our hearts go out to the victims, to the families, and we wish speedy recovery to the injured. What Israel did is to act upon imminent intelligence about a clandestine group that was assembling a nuclear weapon. Now, as you know, Gaurav, we have stated time and again that we will not allow Iran to create a nuclear weapon because we are not going to agree that a country that has sworn to destroy us will actually acquire the means to do it. We have already survived one Holocaust only 80 years ago. We have no intention of having another Holocaust now. We said then never again, and never again is now. So we had to take action.
Okay.
And that's what we did.
Ambassador, explain the targets in terms of the military targets, the nuclear targets, the leadership in Iran. For example, General Hossein Salami, the commander-in-chief of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. Why did Israel take him out? Or General Bagheri, the chief of staff? Are you disrupting the chain of command? Reports indicate that former Iranian National Security Advisor Ali Shamkhani has also been killed.
Gaurav, these are the criminals that were in charge of the plan of extermination of our state. They are the ones that assembled all the 3 tracks of extermination that we're pursuing. The nuclear weapons program, the missile ballistic program, and the ring of fire that we're creating with proxies around us. These are the people in charge. These are the people that were relentlessly pursuing our destruction, and were not listening to the calls of the international community that has been actually talking with them for decades now to renounce this murderous policy. So they paid the price.
Is the American President Donald Trump actually threatening Iran when he says either you sign the deal or there's worse in store? Is Israel that sword arm that's targeting Iran militarily for Iran to sign the deal not to make nuclear weapons?
Well, you know, the Iranians couldn't be convinced to do the right thing. They continued to cheat. The IAEA has mentioned that they were in non-compliance because they breached the safeguards agreement. They had clandestine activities that were occulting, concealing from the international community. So instead of taking President Trump seriously, they exploited, installed, and played for time in order to assemble a nuclear weapon. We got them exposed,